Everything's falling apart. No one can afford any homes up there. Like, let's pump the brakes on America Sucks.
It's the IDP show, now you know.
Welcome to the IDP show. I'm your host, Josh Raymer, joined in the So Check tonight, Adam Markham, Bobby Reynolds, and joining us once again back on the program. You know him from the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty podcast. He's the editor-in-chief for the Fantasy Footballers and an all-around swell dude. It's Kyle Borgognoni. Kai Borg, welcome back to the show, my friend. How are you?
I'm well, and I'm pretty sure this is either my fifth or sixth time. So I'm an SNL guy. So I would like my five-timers jacket at some point.
Five-timers jacket. If anyone deserves it, it's Kai Borg. We were joking. We put him through a 2-hour NFC South preview back in the day. Kyle, we just appreciate you coming back on after that. Just real foul by us, party foul as a host. But
I had to test him.
And he
see what he was made of. And yeah, he passed.
Came through with flying
great
colors.
Guy, great person. Very easy on the eyes.
Very easy on the eyes.
It'll loaded full of data.
Yeah, just data up to his neck. You should see our doc right now. It's looking great. I know you guys are cranking rookies on the Dynasty podcast. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. It's our first foray into the rookies here on the show, Kyle. And we're going to talk about these guys for the next 3 months, y'all. So tonight, we're basically going to touch on 10 offensive guys that we're really interested in. And in the back half of the episode, the three of us will talk about 10 to 12 IDPs that you need to have.
20 to 25.
20 to 25, maybe 30 IDPs that you need to know about.
We're just going to workshop how to pronounce the names.
Yeah, that's really, as Kentucky boys, what this episode is all about. So, Kyle, you are starting to dive into the rookies. What's your overall impression of this class so far? I've heard kind of middling reviews.
Yeah, I think it's okay for all of us to kind of admit that there is a process of looking at these human beings and saying, I don't know everything about them right away. And we're in early February. So some of my thoughts are going to be jumbled. Some of them are going to come out on the Dynasty podcast over the next, 2 or 3 months for the footballers. And I think my first kind of thought, and this kind of goes into Superflex or IDP or however, whatever kind of league you play in, is that the early picks have a ton more value. It's kind of a top heavy class. And then once you get like to a lot of offensive players, once you get to the 107, 108 range, it gets kind of dicey right now. And like, remember last year, the guys who were going at 106, 107 in super flex leagues was like Brian Thomas Jr., Ladd McConkey, guys that like balled out. And so I think there's a lack of confidence this year in some of these guys, but we do have some running backs. And we just did an episode on running backs that made me feel good about this class from a depth perspective. And Ashton Genty is going to be a first round pick. That's where he's going to go. And that's nice to be able to have a running back with that type of capital. But overall, it's top heavy.
Yeah, it seems like, Bobo, this is a class that in IDP leagues, you maybe have the potential for 2 IDPs to sneak into the first round with Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter.
Yeah, Kyle was talking about the plethora of running backs that we're going to have this year, and that's going to help some of the late first. Something we don't have really, in my opinion, in especially 1 QB leagues is like much elite quarterback talent. You don't have any Anthony Richardsons this year. Not necessarily that A-Rich is great, but like he got really good draft capital in the NFL, and some of these guys are, but you're kind of throwing a Josh Rosen dart this year, hoping that when the Titans take Shadur at 1, that he's going to turn into something. I'm not overly, I don't know.
Not overly confident
by
in
the
rookie,
quarterback class.
Yeah, QBs.
But what I was thinking about with what Kyle said, Ladd McConkey, Brian Thomas Jr., you got into Brock Bowers, and then late in the first, you got into some, A.D. Mitchell, Xavier Worthy was a little bit earlier. So how much more would you have rather at the 109 just entrenched in Jared Verse or an Abdul Carter and just said, you know what, forget about these
dart throw running backs,
this 4 or 5 running back or wide receiver range, and just go get the best IDP. I don't know how this year's going to shake out. It's going to be interesting to see what y'all think. I want to pick y'all's brain tonight a little bit on that.
Yeah, it seems like it's a good year to maybe have some second round picks, Eddie.
Yeah, that's from everything I'm kind of gathering. That's what I'm hearing. It's, you have your elite guys, with your first 6 picks pretty much. And then, we'll see a lot of these guys slide up and down after the draft, of course, and combine. We just have so many events to come that's going to help sort a lot of these guys out. It's just so early in the process. Like, there's no sense in being in a rush to be first, with your flag plants and stuff, right?
Because even like at 2 right now on 1 QB, you go GT1 and then it's like, okay, I got to think for a little while.
Yeah.
I don't know if Kyle, if you're the same way, but I don't think there's a 102 that's locked in right now.
Yeah, I mean,
Kyle,
McMillan, we'll talk about McMillan, Arizona wide receiver. He seems to be the one getting the most draft capital, like from mocks, and he has the body work to be able to say that he deserves it. But it does feel different where last year, like, do I get Marv? Do I get Malik Neighbors? And then in a super flex, you're like, I want Jaden Daniels. I want Caleb Williams. You felt pretty confident about that. So I think there is a lot we have to figure out. I think I also want to ask the question from the IDP perspective. Do you feel like people have gotten used to, well, I just take IDP players like in the second, in the third, and I just kind of wait on it? When you were saying earlier, like there might be an opportunity to take Abdul Carter at like 109, where before everyone's like, well, I guess I'm not supposed to do that. It's like, why not just do that as opposed to these dart throw wide receivers that I don't really know where they're going to land? Like the AD Mitchell example is a perfect one.
Yeah, we've done the exercise the last few years, boys, of the rookie redraft. It's always interesting to me that more IDPs go in the first round during the rookie redraft. And then especially in that like early second, I think is where you start to really see a lot of IDPs clock in. But I think this will be one of those years where you'll see more IDPs. I think you just don't see a lot go historically because you don't have to go IDP early. You can wait because the market, your league mates are going to fade IDP and go after offense. It's just that bias, I think, is still going to show.
Yeah. In the moment, it's hard to pull that trigger on an IDP player, right? Just because, we're used to finding the value. And also, like, you just talk yourself into the upside of like the absolute ceilings of these rookies, like right off the bat. And so, yeah, it's hard for me to usually pass on guys in the first round, offensive pieces in the first round for an IDP.
Because you could get an Abdul Carter, and he might end up being like Jared Verse, but you could get a Latu who looks like
could take a
third round draft pick.
Yeah, it takes a little bit for him to develop and stuff. Yeah, that's you could get an Aiden Hutchinson, right?
Yeah.
But it could also be Kayvon.
But you're exactly right, Kyle. So like looking at the end of our XFL, our main league last year, 110 was Trey Benson. You'd rather have Jared Verse than Benson.
For sure.
Yep.
Xavier Leggett, you'd rather have Jared Verse. And AD Mitchell, you'd rather have Jared Verse.
Yep.
So 100%. It's a valid point, especially maybe this year, because you're not going to have as many quarterbacks to kind of push some, offensive talent back in the first round. It's going to be something to think about.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it does make a lot of sense this year with this draft, especially.
Yeah. Well, Bobo talked a little bit about quarterbacks, Kyle. Let's start there. A lot of big names, Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, but guy we brought up, and Bobo made a great pun that I missed in the moment, a dart throw that is starting to soar up people's boards. Jaxson Dart getting some love. You had him here in the doc. Why did you want to talk about Mr. Dart?
Yeah, we started the conversation a couple of weeks ago. We were looking at this quarterback class. We're like, is anybody else going to get draft capital other than Ward and Sanders? Jalen Milroe is a really fun college player who is just completely rocked up, like could just destroy all of us. If we tried to 4-on-1 beat him up, we would be done. But there's a lot of questions of how does he translate to the NFL? So you start to look through the other names here, and Jaxson Dart from Ole Miss is he's the youngest player in this class. So that's great. He has a lot of room to grow. His breakout age at 19 is legit. So he started at USC, came over to Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin. But I think the sneaky part that I care about for fantasy is that he actually has the highest scramble rate of any player in this class. It's 9.3% of his dropbacks, and scrambles are different than rush attempts. Like we'd all like a Jalen Hurts rush attempt from the 1 yard line, but a scramble, on average, they average over 7 yards, and they're the most valuable run between the 20s. So like when Jaden Daniels takes off on a drop back, like that is super valuable for fantasy. So he has the highest in this class. And I've seen over time that translate, like Bo Nix or Jaden Daniels last year, both came in with high scramble rates. He's also really good under pressure, which is something I care about a lot. Are you good under pressure? Do you not take a lot of sacks? Do you scramble? And the last thing, what do you like in the intermediate area of the field? Like anybody can throw behind the line of scrimmage or have a short pass under 10 yards. But if you are hitting these chunk plays over and over and over again, 10 plus yards down the field, then you can make it in the NFL. So I think Jaxson Dart is one of those players that has seen a rise in the last really week or two. And I think he's going to be a first round pick in the NFL draft. Now, where does that make him and where does he line up in fantasy is a different question. But like, let's say he does go to a team that's like mid to late first round. They might be set up already with the weapons there. And it just could be an interesting fit. So I think Jaxson Dart is probably one of the quarterbacks that I've seen rise the most over the last couple of weeks. And it makes sense based on his profile.
Yeah, I think my question with Jaxson Dart is, are you going to get Bo Nix or are you going to get Will Levis?
For sure.
He seems like, because this is really a crash course for me on a lot of these rookies, but Dart, at least as an archetype, Kyle, feels like the Bo Nix kind of rise where it's like, is this dude really a first round pick? And then he goes, I think Bo Nix was like middle of the first round or something last year. That kind of feels like the trajectory we're on with Jaxson Dart.
Yes.
Just because of the way these quarterbacks get pushed up the board, right?
Yeah, and I think what's interesting about Bo Nix, I saw somebody give a comp, is like he's a sloppier version of Bo Nix. He likes some sloppy, Billy Madison style. And like that's not a bad thing. Bo Nix was like so controlled as a runner. He's like so precise, it's just like everything is calm and collected. I think Jaxson Dart just has a bigger arm. And so I think the ceiling outcome for him is pretty high. I think Bo Nix kind of showed us like way more than we all thought, starting 60 plus games in college, coming right in and then leading the team to playoffs. But man, it's not a bad comp to give somebody. I know it's really recency bias to bring up a player that we just saw have a good season, but where he's at right now in mock draft boards is like he's on the fringe of the first round. And you're seeing people start to say like there's some buzz that this guy, he's more controlled than Will Levis. I will say that. Like Will Levis was somebody that we poo-pooed on our show and basically said like we will bet against him in every single way. And that one feels good now because it's like everything we saw on film was like, dude, you can't see pressure. Like you just can't. And it's really bad. So I think Jaxson Dart's an interesting name to throw out.
Yeah, rest in peace to the meme king, Will Levis. Generational run in terms of memes this season.
He'll be back. I mean, these dudes just tend to float around, and I think Will Levis will be one of these guys that just pops up and throws a game away for a team when he has to come in for the injured starter. But yeah, the sack rate for Jaxson Dart, pretty darn high. I mean, right up there with Jaden Daniels, who I loved. I think it was Nate Tice Compton with Johnny Knoxville out there taking these hits and throwing his body around with no regard for his own health. But yeah, I think Jaxson Dart, I'm with you, Kyle. I think he'll be a first round pick. And that will probably give us at least 3 quarterbacks in the first round. I would say Ward and Shedeur both go top 5 probably.
NFL draft.
Okay. Yes. Sorry. Okay. NFL draft. I think those 2 QBs are both top 5 picks. And I think Jaxson Dart's probably like 15 to 25 range, somewhere in there. So
the numbers are there. I mean, you've got to pay attention, 4,300 yards and 29 touchdowns last year at Ole Miss. The rushing is pretty impressive too.
Yeah.
389 yards in 2023, 495 yards last year. Also recorded a tackle in his freshman season at USC. So
is he pretty fast?
Yeah, he's kind of quick. He's kind of
like, could we see him like have like a crazy 40 combine time and tear up the combine?
So Jaxson Dart coming out of high school, which doesn't mean everything, but like if you are a 5-star recruit and you are the Gatorade National Player of the Year, it's not just like he's some random guy who just happened to end up at Ole Miss and is having a couple good seasons. Like there's stuff here that says that Jaxson Dart was supposed to be good in college. He went to USC and then he transferred when Lincoln Riley came over because he brought over Caleb Williams. So that's part of his journey. And I just think like Cam Ward's going to be first, in my opinion. Like that's how I have him rated. I think he's a tier above Shedeur Sanders. I think Sanders is a really natural thrower. Like, it looks clean. I think he's accurate. I worry about some of his like Kaleb tendencies where he just dances in the pocket. Like,
Yeah.
when your superpower in college is escaping pressure, that is really cool. You have a lot of cool highlights. That doesn't work in the NFL. Like with, defenders and edge rushers that can get after you. So I worry a little bit with Sanders. Obviously landing spots matter, but I have Ward, Sanders, and then I actually have Dart at 3. Jalen Milroe, who knows what teams think about him, but he runs the ball. So that's cool for the game we play.
Do you think that when we get down to it, we're in the draft room, do you think that that's how it's going to shake out? I feel like it's going to be, Shedeur is going to be who people want, then Cam Ward, then Dart. Don't you? Do you think that it could shake out like that, Kyle?
In fantasy drafts?
Yes, in fantasy.
I mean, yes, obviously Shedeur has the name that everybody knows. It's tough when I look at like what translates to our game. And so with Cam Ward, I think there's a lot there that I like and I like for fantasy. Cam Ward's a betting favorite right now, but those things. Will Levis was the betting favorite to go number 2 overall. So who knows?
Yeah, it was. He was locked in to go 4 overall to the Colts and ends up sliding out of the first round. So
Shedeur is kind of getting to be in that like don't draft category for me.
A lot of smoke around him and the Giants too, from what I've been seeing online. I mean, it's smoke season.
There's a lot of question marks for these quarterbacks
for sure.
Yeah.
So
a lot of the analysts I've seen that have said these guys would be like 7th in the pecking order if they were in last year's draft class. So
wild.
Yeah, which is crazy. I don't know that I believe that, but the guys that went last year are all pretty good though.
Yeah. And the other thing with like these guys, it feels like we could see them like burn out quickly. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like we'll know pretty soon if they're good or not. And it could be like A-Rich could still save his career, but it could look like something, right? Something like that.
Yes. So like last year in main league, Caleb Williams went 202 and then Jaden went 204. So obviously now that you would probably have risen them above some of those
Jaden
wide
would be
receivers
first
at the
round
back.
for sure.
But I don't think in 1 QB leagues, are you drafting a Cam Ward?
He's probably going to go at the back of the first round, whoever the first quarterback is. And I think that's what people have learned just a little bit. Like we used to drop quarterbacks way too far in 1 quarterback leagues where it's like, I'll just stream. And now it's one of those things where it's like, okay, 108, 109, 110, people start looking there because the class is so weak at wide receiver. Normally we'd have 6 or 7 guys we feel excited about. I have maybe 4 right now at wide receiver that I'm like, I like this guy. He'll get the draft capital. So it kind of changes based on what the landscape is. Is it stockpiled in these certain spots? But yeah, I think at the end of the day, my opinion as of right now, that Cam Ward will go number 1.
Yeah. I think I agree with that.
And I mean, he'll be a worthy, late first round pick. I mean, think about like Jaden Daniels last year. Like that looks like a very smart
smash
pick now. Yeah. I mean, you could have done Caleb Williams, although I think Caleb Williams is about to ball the hell out.
Yeah.
Too,
Ben Johnson. So. I think it's wheels up for Caleb, but let's talk running back, Kyle. We know about Ashton Jeanty. We know about Amarion Hampton, the Ohio State guys. So we're going to bring you all 3 other names tonight, and we're going to kick it off in Iowa, Kyle, with Kaleb Johnson, running back, Iowa. Tell us why Kaleb Johnson caught your eye.
So Kaleb Johnson is a mammoth, man. And whenever we talk about measurements for running backs, wide receiver, anybody, just assume they're a little bit shorter and they don't weigh as much. That's just how it is. They're all lying. I don't know why this system works this way in college, that you can just lie when you're going to get weighed in. I saw a player, I can't remember which one, where I was looking through high school highlights and he was listed as 6'3" in high school when he's like 5'11", 6 foot right now.
Wow.
So it's like, you do whatever, but he's big. So 225 is what he's listed as, 6 foot. He kind of runs upright. And when you see running backs that do that, it looks really cool in the highlight film. It's scary in the NFL if you're not one of those players that can actually like get below someone else in their pad. But his broken tackle rate, the fact he didn't fumble, 21 touchdowns this past year, he has the highest dominator rating of anybody in this class, meaning he has the highest percentage of his team's yards and touchdowns. And granted, Iowa didn't throw the ball a ton, but he just has the body that if he gets the right fit, it can work. And he can find himself like in a place where he can be a 3-down back. Like he can catch the ball too. So I think he's a name that's probably going to be 4th or 5th of that list. Genty's going to go first. I'm pretty sure Omarion Hampton's going to go as the second guy, maybe at the top of the second round. And then people have split opinions on the Ohio State guys who they like, but I think Kaleb Johnson should be in that top 5 group. And if he gets, round 2 or round 3, so day 2 draft capital in the NFL draft, like this is a guy in 1 quarterback leagues that belongs in the mid to late first round.
Yeah, I like that, Bobo. I got some second round picks in our main league this year. I need to restock the pantry at running back. I mean, you could do worse than a guy that didn't fumble. Like that a lot. Coaches hate when rookie running backs fumble. It's a quick way to get in the doghouse. On the bigger side, highest dominator rating. I mean, Kaleb Johnson, you've got my attention.
I think Kaleb Johnson isn't going to make it to the second round. I think Kaleb Johnson's going to be a mid. The combine will have to help us shake out the Judkins, Travion Henderson, Omarion Hampton type situation. But to me, Kaleb Johnson has kind of been my RB2 in the class.
Wow,
you're right,
look at
Kyle.
you, Bobo.
He's blocky. He's big. But dude, he's powerful. And it's really weird the way that this guy runs. He doesn't jump cut, he's not like Genty is going to make people look stupid. He's very Saquon-esque. He has just a lot of unique traits to his game. And then you've got Genty that's just kind of a highlight show. Kaleb Johnson is just your carving the defense, never puts a foot in the ground, but also never really loses yards, just north, south. If he gets on an efficient offense, I really think Kaleb Johnson could be really, really good in the NFL. I love this little highlight from Kyle Borg.
Hot and bothered, Bobo.
What's so funny is that we did a show and he was one of the running backs we talked about. In my notes, I said, I wouldn't say he could put his foot in the ground. Like you were saying, like he's one of those dudes where he's patient. He's north-south. If he's in the right scheme, it works. He's not going to cut back though, the same way that you would with Genty or some of these other guys. So that can work in the NFL. The only other thing I will add, and this is something we have to add for any running back, is how much do they benefit from their offensive line? So Iowa's had a good unit for years. They were 4th in PFF's run block grade this past year. So I just worry, like when you see these big explosive runs from some players, let me have a come to Jesus moment, guys. Like I'm rethinking a lot of thoughts about when we talk about explosive run plays. Because depending on who you talk to, it's like 10 yards and other people say 15. 10 yards is a really good run. Is it explosive? Like, I don't know. Did you have the offensive line block something for you? Did that help you? Like all of those things when we talk about stats in our stupid little fantasy football game we play, it's one of those things where I'm like, I don't really know. And also the 40 time is not that important to me for running backs. Like there are very few times running backs get to run 40 straight yards untouched. It's Saquon's done it because he has an offensive line that kicks butt and he's really good. But at the end of the day, I care about the short area burst to get 5 to 10 consistently. Like you're not going to get 40-yard runs very much. It's just not going to happen. Like the stat we came up with is Saquon had more 40+ yard runs in the regular season this year than Todd Gurley had his entire career. Wow. It's like, it's not normal.
Oh, hey, easy. Tread lightly.
I know. Hey, Atlanta Falcons, great. Todd Gurley.
Oh God.
True. That sentence was true up until the last word.
I have a Gurley jersey, a Falcons Gurley jersey.
Wow. We should wear ours together someday.
That's like that Good Morning Football segment of like random jerseys.
The explosive run thing, like when there's a hole in the offensive line, if I could have gotten 8 yards, it's not explosive.
Yeah. Yeah. 10 yards, it feels like you should get 10 yards.
Adam's probably getting 12 yards.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about short area bursts.
I'm taking to the house.
Yeah.
That's honest,
like,
guys.
That was your nickname in high school.
Try to jump over somebody.
Adam
backwards.
Short area burst Markham.
Yeah, that's right. That was it.
So let's keep it rolling though. I'm putting a star next to Kaleb Johnson. I'm gonna be paying attention to this guy.
You're picking 105.
Yeah, you can star him. Yeah, you ain't enough.
I mean, that's about where I've seen him go in like a lot of these mocks.
Yeah, he went 107 in ours. So
okay,
that makes sense.
Yeah. Assuming he gets like, second round draft capital, I think.
Yeah. Hey.
But he kind of reminds me a little bit of like a Nick Chubb type.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay. I can dig that.
You get him, Kyle, you're right. If you get him on a good offensive line, like, Cowboys, put him behind some big boys. Let him run on the turf. Man, that could be fun.
Yeah.
Very productive.
Like that a lot. Let's go to the SEC, Kyle, and talk about Dylan Sampson, running back for the Tennessee Volunteers. What stuck out to you about Mr. Sampson?
All right, I do need to preface this by saying I have some bias about Tennessee players. I grew up a Tennessee Volunteers fan.
Wow, did not know this.
Yes, I went to a lot of games in Elon Stadium, including the year they won the first ever BCS national championship.
There you
T.
go.
Martin, the year after
T. Martin,
Peyton.
baby. That's right.
But Dylan Sampson is the type of running back that I think 5 years ago would have been like, we don't care about this guy. He's not big enough. He's listed as 5'11", 201, which means he will be under 200 pounds when he weighs in. But the best way to describe him is like he's very James Cook-esque. And James Cook was given second round draft capital, which shocked a lot of people coming out of Georgia. But it's players that can have the burst, and they're better in short spurts than like saying like James Cook is one of those players that they clearly use Ty Johnson or, Ray Davis and obviously Josh Allen as other runners in the system. But you saw this crazy high end outcome for James Cook this past year where he had 16 rushing touchdowns. So Dylan Sampson, I think that he's really good with the ball in his hands. He's only 20 years old, so he's the youngest in this class. At one point this year, he had 6 straight 100-yard rushing games in the SEC. And it just matters what OC views him as a do-it-all weapon. Because that's what James Cook is. Like, he's a weapon for the team, not necessarily like an every down grinding running back the way that we talked about Kaleb Johnson or Amarian Hampton. So he's one of those players that I don't think he will be in the third round, but I think he's kind of in that fringe of day 2, day 3. Like last year we saw other guys that like they're right on the cusp. They're a little bit smaller. They didn't test as well. They ended up in the 4th round. A bunch of running backs did last year. One of them was Bucky Irving because people said, his 40 time is not fast enough and he's not really big. But at the end of the day, Bucky Irving, James Cook are good running backs, not necessarily like the most impressive athletic specimens on the planet, but they're good at actually running the football where, like, I always use the example, DeAndre Swift is a good athlete. That's why he went in the 2nd round. He's not a good running back. Like the runner of the football, he's not good at it. Where these other guys like Dylan Sampson, James Cook, I think they can be used as a weapon for teams if he gets that kind of round 3, round 4 draft capital.
That sounds kind of fun, Bobo. I wouldn't mind. My mind was going to offensive coordinators like Chicago Bears, right? Like give this guy,
yes,
a brilliant offensive mind, someone like Ben Johnson. That would be a lot of fun. And James Cook was a guy that I think if you looked at the end of his rookie season, you'd be like, I guess I whiffed on that guy. And then if you held on, you're feeling pretty good about James Cook right now in Dynasty.
Yeah. And I mean, Tennessee's produced some pretty good running backs over the last couple of years. I'm still holding hope for Jalon Wright, in his 2nd year.
Yeah.
But, look at Kamara coming out. And I'm sure there's going to be a few comps to Kamara just because catches the ball out of the backfield a little quicker, a little bit more elusive. It feels like Dylan Sampson is kind of like your discount like Judkins. Judkins is going to be your 1st round capital in rookie drafts. I don't know how far Dylan Sampson could fall. I mean, if you did your drafts right now, nobody's going to know about the guy. But I mean, 3rd round in your rookie draft feels about right. Dylan Sampson is probably only going to climb though, because he's going to run some stupid 40 time. People are going to have more time to look at like how elusive he is, his all-purpose yards. And I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if Dylan Sampson didn't sneak into like maybe late 2nd at some point.
Okay.
Probably early.
Yeah.
It's a good year to go get some 2nd round picks, 2nd and 3rds. I mean, because with the running backs being like this loaded, like these guys are going to fall
for sure.
So you'll be able to get a lot of value in this draft.
And I like that Sampson is the youngest in the class.
That's nice. Yeah.
Because,
20.4 and baby.
Right. In a league like ours where you have contracts, you get that player really as they're entering that apex, because some of these guys come out 22, 23 years old, especially with, all the red shirt and the COVID years. And some of these dudes are 27 years old.
You'll probably have to wait on it for a year, a year or 2. But yeah, he could be someone that, leads an offense like a James Cook at some point.
That's something I've thought about a lot here lately of like the running backs that you've drafted that aren't just like, like UDFAs, the people that actually get some draft capital, most of those running backs get a shot at some point due to injury, coaches liking them, not necessarily like Tyrone Tracy, but, man, running backs are they're the linebacker of the defense. You need to know that linebacking depth chart because Josie Jewell's going to get hurt and you need to know who's behind him, very similar to like, A-Chain down in Miami. Who's behind A-Chain? Because A-Chain's going to get hurt at some point.
Yeah, running backs get nicked up. And also coaches love having running back by committee.
Yeah.
There aren't a whole lot of true 3-down workhorse running backs anymore.
Kyle, if you had to peg Sampson right now, where do you have him? Mid-second, mid-third? What do you think?
In the NFL or fantasy draft?
Rookie mock.
Rookie mock.
In one quarterback rookies, he's probably like 204 or 5, but I'm a little bit probably higher. But he just went in a mock that we did at, let's see. Oh, he went at 208. So I think that's mid second round, but like you guys were saying, like he could move up a little bit.
And also like everyone is like fresh on everyone's mind is these running backs just balled out.
Right.
And so everyone's going to be bumping these RBs up their board.
Everybody's
Once
bumping.
Everybody's bumping.
Everyone's bumping. Everybody's doing it.
Everybody's got subs in their car. You had subs in your car in high school.
Yes. JL Audio.
Yeah.
I had W0s.
That Acura, was it Acura?
It was a 94
Camry.
Toyota Camry.
Toyota Camry.
Yeah.
94
Hey,
Toyota. That thing was
Pretty
coming
sweet.
apart
That
at
thing
the
was
seams.
awesome.
Sweet.
Don't you dare
Had
talk
like a little
bad about
power
Toyota
button in
Camry.
it. Not sure what it did, but I'm pretty sure it gave me
Power.
Extra boost.
something.
It was
Gave you
NOS,
something.
I'm
It
Gave
was
you
NOS,
some
before
juice.
NOS.
It was
Okay.
NOS. Yeah, there you
Yeah.
go. It was some kind of
version of
NOS.
NOS.
Toyota
It's just
installed
leaking into the
factory
cab of the
NOS.
car,
Yeah.
rotting away your brain cells.
It was a can of dip. You pressed it, a little can of
popped
dip
up, boom, got it.
A lot of experiences in that thing.
A lot of
Throw your
experiences
lipper
that
in,
we will
sure.
not talk about on this show. Well, I can only hope this next guy gets a full-time role, Kyle, if for no other reason than the name. And I'll just hit you right out the gate with one of those for the fine folks at home. We're talking about Bhayshul Tuten, Virginia Tech. I am so excited to hear about this guy, Kyle. Please tell me what has got you all hot and bothered
You
about
said
Tuten.
that so wrong, I'm sure.
I'm trying my best, guys.
Bhayshul Tuten. You were close.
Bhayshul Tuten. Yeah, there you go.
Tootin'. Nice.
What if it was like he's terrible? I just wanted to throw him out there. Like there's nothing.
This is the
That's what
show
we're
for
here
you.
for.
Yeah, this is you're in the right place.
Yeah. No, I mean, so Tuten is Virginia Tech, but he's a broken tackle machine. And so it kind of like, is there a team that looks at this player and goes, oh, you can be an early down guy. And in our offense, like I want somebody that can break tackles that doesn't just go down on first contact. 1,100 plus yards, 15 touchdowns this past year in the ACC. He can catch the ball. And I think he is an unsexy player. I don't even think he will test super well, but I think he's actually good at the game. And I think he could sneak in round 4. And like, you think of all the running backs this past year that went round 4, the Braylon Allens, Bucky Irving, Will Shipley went there, Garendo, like all these, Ray Davis, those are the guys that like, we look at and we're like, were any of them that good other than Bucky? And it's like, all of those dudes have roles in offenses. And then a year from now, a lot of these guys will inherit roles that are really valuable. Like I mentioned James Cook, he's final year under contract. Breece Hall, final year under contract. Rashad White, same thing. So he's a player that if he gets in the right landing spot, I think he works as an NFL running back, as somebody who can break tackles. And then maybe in year 2, he grows into something else. But it's just a name to know and a name just to think about every single day.
Yeah, I think if you're like farting around in the 4th round of your rookie drafts, I mean, you could be rootin' tootin', Bhayshul Tuten. So, yeah, I think I
think he stinks.
Yeah, I think he's needs
He
a
smells.
sponsorship from Dude Wipes. If there ever was a Dude Wipes player, this is it. This is the analysis you come for on the IDP show. And we appreciate you bringing this to us, Kyle. Yeah, I think I'm just going to be so curious to see. It feels like this year more than any other, piggybacking off what Adam said, I think there are going to be more running backs going in this year's rookie draft, because I've heard the class is pretty solid top to bottom for running back. And I think the pendulum swing is going to swing back in all startup drafts, rookie drafts, best ball drafts, running backs are going to go higher and higher than they have in years past.
Yeah, I was thinking the other day, like I haven't done any startups this year, but man, with the way I typically draft, which is like loading up on wide receivers, I feel like this is a great year to join a startup because I feel like there's going to be great value at wide receiver just because everyone's going to. Bucky Irving has like a 3rd round ADP, I think, which is just like, geez, that's a lot.
If you wanted to go running back heavy and build your startup, your team that way, like who are the running backs like that you feel really great about?
So I was thinking that too.
In Dynasty.
Like you're also coupling this draft with a bunch of okay to really good running backs with the fact that McCaffrey's not looking any younger. Henry's getting older. Chubb's about to leave the league. I mean, we could probably, rattle out.
Saquon's getting older.
Tons of people are going to get replaced.
Candidate.
Like DeAndre Swift, like those types of guys will get replaced by some of these guys. So.
Well, we've had so many wide receivers come in and kind of reinforce the ranks with like the absolutely like loaded class that we had last year. I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr. is not even really getting talked about because of how down that first year was. Like that's the caliber of wide receivers we've seen coming in. So we just haven't really replaced and replenished the ranks at running back like we have at wide receivers. So I think this year you're going to see a lot of running backs go in startup drafts, rookie drafts, best ball drafts, et cetera, et cetera. So let's turn the page, though, to wide receiver, Kyle, and let's have the discussion. We had a great question on Twitter from one of our subscribers over there saying, what is with all the Travis Hunter 101 talk when we don't even know if he's going to play cornerback, if he's going to play wide receiver? Kyle, tonight I saw a tweet from Daniel Jeremiah saying, I may be in the minority here, but I actually prefer Travis Hunter as a wide receiver who moonlights as a cornerback. What's your take on this guy? Looking at him, you guys are primarily offensive focused, looking at these guys when you're scouting them. Obviously, this dude is an exception. So what's your kind of evaluation of Travis Hunter? Do you want to see him play wide receiver primarily and moonlight at quarterback? Vice versa. Where are you coming down on this?
Yeah, there's the NFL of here's what I think a franchise should do, or here's what would be really fun for us in the game that we play. But I think at the end of the day, we don't have players that can say like, oh, well, he'll probably get to do a little bit of both. Like, I think he really will get to do a little bit of both. I wonder because, I still trying to get my head around cornerbacks and IDP because I know we're always streaming. And at the end of the day, we want dudes on the field all the time. They don't throw their way. It's like still, that's the most frustrating part of IDP to me. Like, this guy isn't just some random wide receiver who was really good at cornerback. He's really actually good at both. He set the Georgia high school state record of receiving touchdowns. Collinsville High School. Shout out. I got to shout out my Georgia boys, man.
Got to do it.
Betts hates it on our podcast, but like any chance, any connection of anybody from Georgia, got to give him a shout out. But I think what the best part is that nobody hopefully is picking right now. Like if you're in a rookie draft and you're picking right now, like I don't recommend doing that. Like you can change it in your league. And so a lot of people, I get questions, the same thing. Like I have the 102 and Genty's going to go 101. So like, what do I do? Like, it's like, you don't have to pick right now. Your pick will only gain value because everybody's going to be obsessed with these players. So you can wait to see how they're announced. Do you remember when Trayvon Walker went number 1 overall? Do you guys remember that they announced him as a linebacker?
Yes.
Which is crazy to me because like, yes, he's an edge player. He's a linebacker, but like usually it's like you're a defensive lineman. That's like what in NFL terms you would be announced as. And with Travis Hunter, we're going to see how they announce him that day. The team's going to be very public about how they want to do it. And if it is like, I saw him going to the Browns in a mock, Daniel Jeremiah's. It's like this dude played out wide 94% of his snaps this past year and was the best player in college football. The year before, 60% of his targets were in the slot. So he can basically do it all as a wide receiver. And as a quarterback, I think he might be more valuable from NFL standards. But I know that doesn't translate the same way to IDP. So my opinion right now is I get to wait. And that's great. Like I don't have to make up my mind. As a player, I have no issues. If they announce him as a wide receiver, he should be the 102, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think where I've come down on this and where I still am with Travis is I think he will play cornerback because it is a more valuable position in NFL teams. Having a lockdown, shutdown cornerback is more valuable than in, top 10, top 12, top 15 wide receiver. So I think that teams will look at him primarily as a cornerback who moonlights as a wide receiver.
I think they should do that. I agree with you.
I think it's just more valuable. It's positional scarcity. You just don't, we could all name, 20 to 25 wide receivers who are, have top 5 potential. The list of cornerbacks that you could do that with is a lot shorter. So I think Travis Hunter will primarily be a cornerback who plays a good percentage of wide receiver snaps. But I think it depends on the team where he lands, because you look at like the top 5 picks. I don't think Travis Hunter is getting outside the top 5. Tennessee, Cleveland, the New York Giants, New England, Jacksonville. All of those teams need a wide receiver and a cornerback. So this could be a situation where all of these teams are like, Travis, if you can do it, buddy, we'll put you out there on both sides of the ball because we need help. We are talent poor at these positions.
I think he's going to be playing a lot of wide receiver. He'll be doing cornerback as well, but I could see him doing like second, third downs for corner. Receiver, I think he's going to want to play receiver. I think he's going to look at the contracts that these guys are paid, and he's going to be like, well, I could make a lot more money at receiver. And also, I think it's just an easier position. I think it would be potentially easier for him to get that big bag, where it's like cornerback, it's a hard position, dude. Like, I don't know that he is going to be elite at cornerback. Whereas I don't really have that question at receiver. I think he's going to be one of the best receivers in the league. So I don't know, man. I think he's going to be a cheat code though for IDP. Like if he gets tagged as a cornerback, wide receiver, at least for those first few years, I think that whoever drafts him is going to let him try it. I think, play plenty of defensive snaps, play a solid amount of offensive snaps, but I think it'll probably work its way out, a few years down the line that he ends up focusing on one position.
I think so too.
So, yeah. I think he's one of those guys where I think you're going to enjoy it in the short term, but you could probably lose that designation at some point. Yeah. So I wouldn't fall in love with it.
I'd be shocked if he didn't come in labeled as a cornerback, like on our platform of choice, RSO Babo.
Played more snaps as a cornerback last year than wide receiver.
I think when the platforms are looking at like, how do we designate this guy if you can't go dual desi, which I don't think we've ever seen a dual desi offense and defense guy. It's typically like linebacker / DL or whatever. But I think that he is going to get tagged as a cornerback by most platforms, and a cornerback, if he does play a significant percentage of wide receiver snaps, while you have that designation, that's a game-breaking type of player.
I agree with what Kyle's saying. To me, if it's mostly wide receiver with some moonlighting at cornerback, he is my quarterback. That'd be fun.
That would be
cornerback.
Fun. Do that too.
He's my 102. But you could be left holding a large bag of poo-poo if for some reason you draft him at the 102 thinking that he's this next Justin Jefferson and he ends up playing like Pat Surtain. That's
the doomsday scenario.
If the narrative swaps and he ends up being a 102 cornerback that randomly plays some wide receiver snaps, I get it. I think he's better at wide receiver, but I'm just trying to play the what if. I honestly feel like if somebody felt like Travis Hunter was this much of a game breaker in IDP, trade the 102. Let somebody else come draft him and let them pay you a fortune for him. And I don't know what that. I don't know what
let somebody else take the gamble, because
you want big reward, you got to take big risks, boys.
It is a big risk, but it's a situation where the what?
We need that drop.
That's
from a movie.
That's from a movie?
It's gotta be.
It's gotta be from a movie, Kyle. It is a situation where you just drafted, Quinyon Mitchell, a player who was not thrown at all last year on the Philadelphia Eagles. So that's the worst case scenario. The best case scenario is you've got a guy playing full-time cornerback and wide receiver snaps who's putting up 200 more points than the next closest corner because you get the offensive production on top of it.
Corner was down kind of last year, I think.
So it's a question, Addy.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's fun. I mean,
it's also like
I want to believe.
Yeah, it's also indicative though of a class where we have a lot of question marks.
Yeah, that
Travis Hunter, with his own question marks, could be considered at the 101.
When you have this many question marks in the class, like, well, maybe let's just go for it.
Let's take a big
Let's just
swing.
hope that it works. I mean, you mean, really, like we talk about cheat codes a lot across fantasy. Like you actually have one.
We've never seen anything like this.
Can anything bump GT off of 101?
If he is drafted, like right now, everything that we're seeing is top 15 in the NFL draft. You can't pass on those kind of players in the fantasy game that we play, because like my comp and comps or whatever, but it's like you're just getting a shorter Bijan who is more explosive. Like that's what you're getting. You're getting someone who can just stiff arm people into, the pits of Sheol and then go the distance. And then a team says, we will draft you there because we think you're that good. That's like what's going to happen. And I'm not saying like he's bulletproof, but like those players go 101 in one quarterback leagues. I did want to throw this out there with Hunter because the conditioning is unreal. And we all know that. Like if you are playing that much football, you are just crazy. In the NFL, you are also adding the risk of injury. And I never want to say this for a player, but it's just like pure math says that there is a higher percentage of somebody's out on the field for X number of snaps more than everybody else. There's either a ticking time bomb of just happening or just freak things happen in the NFL. Like that's so many injuries. Tank Dell's injuries the past 2 years have been completely freak injuries from his own teammates hurting him. Like, it's just like, that's how he got hurt. Not because he was small. It just happens over time. So with a player like this, I like the advice of saying, if you want this dude in IDP, pay up at the 102. Like, and at least you recoup some value. You're not calling your shot saying he stinks. You're just saying, I know there's enough risk here. And if somebody paid up for the 102, like that's worth it for my team. So,
yeah, I don't think even with some of these players getting, some nice draft capital, I don't think Travis Hunter in IDP rookie drafts falls outside of the top 4.
Right.
Even with the question marks, I think even if, the team said he's primarily going to play cornerback and we'll see if we can get him some wide receiver snaps, I still think he goes top 4, top 5.
Yeah.
Because things change. I mean, best laid plans in April. A team like New England gets out there and like, oh my God, we have nobody on offense. Travis, get out there and play, even if it's just like second and third down or whatever.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I want to move on though, Kyle, because I feel like there's some other interesting wide receiver names in this class. And we're going to go to a player here from Mizzou that even as a college football casual, I have heard of Luther Burden III, but let's talk a little bit about him. Where does he fall in your hierarchy for rookie wide receivers, Kyle?
So right now, like I have him as wide receiver 3, and it's kind of like what type of wide receiver does an NFL team need? Because he's 5'11", 208, which means he's going to be 5'10", 200. Like that's probably where he's going to be, maybe 205. And Burden is 21 years old, and he's played a lot in the slot. And the best way to describe him is like he's a little bit smaller DJ Moore, where DJ Moore's like calling card when he came out of Maryland was like, this dude is a yak king. Just give him the ball and he can do awesome stuff after the catch. That's down the field. And then you also know like they use him in the screen game. And I think that's a really high comp. I mean, DJ Moore was a first round pick. And so I think Luther Burden is a player I would be very happy with right now. If he gets the, top 20, top 25 in the NFL draft, if he gets that type of capital, then, he's sliding into 104, 105, somewhere around there. And that's one of the few players that you can have confidence in. And so I just wanted to like give people like the name, like he came out of high school, top 3 recruit in the entire nation, goes to Mizzou. And a lot of people like, I don't follow Mizzou. He was productive. He wasn't out of this world productive, but like he's going to work in the NFL. He's going to work as a zone guy, yards after the catch. So I like Luther Burden, and I like, he just makes sense at 105, 106.
Yeah, feels like a classic middle of the first round pick in rookie drafts, Bobo.
I don't love Burden.
All right.
I don't know.
Is it his family?
It's partially his family, but it's I do think you're right, Kyle. He's going to measure a little shorter than he says he is right now. We're all 6'2" in this room, pretty easily.
6'6".
Yeah.
Unlike the prospects, we'll actually weigh in heavier
for sure
than we were listed.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think Burden is going to be. I don't think he's going to have some crazy speed at the combine, which maybe you don't need. I just think that Burden's like. Maybe top end to me is kind of like Josh Downs. I just don't really love him. He has
Georgia boy. Watch out now.
This is a little shot. You kind of slid in there with Gurley. I had to kind of circle back around. Contested catches are good. Ability downfield with his hands are great and everything. But I don't know what it is about Burden. I think if I'm in the middle of the first, I'm probably going to skip a guy like Burden and grab a guy like Kaleb Johnson or Judkins or somebody like that. I don't know. I don't know what it is about Burden. I just don't really care for him. I don't really care for Tet either. And I don't think we're going to talk about him, but I don't know.
He's carrying a heavy burden when it comes to Luther, Addy.
Good one.
And Kyle, you'll love this. Bobby has 5 first-round picks in our main league.
Or 6.
You might be blowing a lot of smoke tonight.
I was going to say, this may all be a smoke screen to throw us off the scent.
How much has that been like part of the show? Like when you guys have grown together, you've done this for a while, you're like, okay, we want to be genuine, but I'm also posturing a little bit.
Yeah, Bobo loves to workshop trades that then end up getting processed the next day.
Not me, Kyle. I'll keep it 100.
Yeah.
Always.
I respect that.
Classically keeps it 100.
Yeah.
As the youths like to say.
I like the challenge. I like everyone know what I'm going to do and still come in and it doesn't matter.
You go into the best ball drafts where every single person is in your rankings. You get no values and still finish number 3 overall in the whole damn tournament.
Just lucky, I guess.
Yeah, just lucky. You're going to throw us off the scent one year with the worst rankings we have ever seen.
Coming
this year.
But let's keep it rolling here, Kyle. We got a couple guys up next in Matthew Golden, Isaiah Bond. You kind of lump these two guys together. Tell me kind of what's your thoughts on here on Golden and Bond?
Yeah. So Texas wide receivers are an interesting breed. Like last year we had Worthy and we had AD Mitchell and Jordan Whittington all come out of Texas. And I think the hardest thing to figure out is like the way that the offense functions is they kind of spread the ball around more than you would think. Like they have guys that have had significant draft capital in the NFL, and yet all of them are kind of targeted under 20% of their routes. So it's like hard to get a full read of these players. Now, Golden balled out in the college football playoffs. So if you watch those games, Arizona State game, like he was a menace. So if you want to like look at some film and be like, oh, this dude could work as a field stretcher in the NFL. I like Golden more. Bond, I have some issues, like in terms of like where he was on the field. He reminds me very much of AD Mitchell, another player who like they never targeted him at all at Texas. Like you'd think a player with his dominant, at least like what everyone says, this guy's a dominant athlete. He just didn't show up. Like he's kind of like hit or miss. And so I worry about Bond because he's getting a lot of steam recently as he's young, he's exciting, he's his field stretcher. And I just find him mostly inconsistent. So right now I have Golden a little bit higher than Bond. And you'll also notice that a lot of these players, we started doing this a couple years ago, as we looked at the draft stock before the college football playoffs. And then we looked at it afterwards and compared. And you just see every single player just has this gradual rise because everybody's watching football. And so I do try to make sure that some of these players that are really front and center, like Cam Scatterbo of Arizona State, everybody saw him, everyone heard the name. And so he just slowly rises. Same thing with like Ohio State players. Will Howard, the quarterback, it's like, oh, you won a national championship, you're slowly going to rise in everybody's rankings. These are two guys where I think Golden, it's appropriate. Bond, I'm not so much in on him.
Yeah, great product though, Bobo. Gold Bond.
Yeah,
great
that's
for
the goal.
chafing.
That's it.
Get it in the sensitive areas. It's a really good product.
It's their NIL deal. That's what they got. Both of them.
They should.
Also want to play Goldeneye.
That's right. I was just thinking Goldeneye, James Bond,
Slappers only.
Two guys together. Slappers only, of course. Odd job. A little cheat code. Speaking of cheat codes,
Some strafing.
some strafing. Yes,
the original Travis Hunter.
Yeah, not chafing, but strafing for sure. Baba, what do you think here on Matthew Golden, Isaiah Bond combo?
They feel a lot like the Clemson linebackers from the last couple of years, much like A.D. Mitchell and Xavier Worthy have. You know, there's lots of flashes. Isaiah Simmons was really fun for me, but it wasn't fun for me to roster in the NFL.
Still hurts.
You know, Trenton Simpson kind of has some pop to him, but are we going to be talking about him 4 or 5 years from now? I don't know. Xavier Worthy, I don't know. He's on the right team if he's going to have any value for the next couple of years. So he's got that going for him. But those are some of my favorite videos this year. A.D. Mitchell's route running, just empty, never getting a target with the Colts. Just look how he shakes this defender just and runs out of bounds.
Yeah, he gets out of bounds. That's the thing. It's like
good cardio, though.
Yes, a lot of cardio. The dude's impeccable in the body fat.
Matthew Golden's pretty amazing, I will say. The last couple of weeks, Kyle's exactly right. The college football playoffs has, elevated Golden stock 2 times. Golden will be a first round rookie draft pick. I feel like, I feel like if you miss out on the Hunters or McMillans or Burdens, maybe Golden slips into the second. Just depends on where some of these running backs are, but his release is super clean, downfield body control, hands is pretty elite, honestly. 6 foot 195 is a perfect little weight for a guy like that. I'm in on Golden. I think Kyle is all over this. And Isaiah Bond, I'm not in as much on, but
Daniel Jeremiah I was shocked. He had Matthew Golden at 21st overall to the Steelers, which is, he even admits, like he says this could be higher than the normal, but like if Golden gets top 40, top 50 draft capital, I think it's a player that I like, and Bond is just a little bit more hit and miss.
Okay. I'm going to keep you up there on the big screen, Kyle. We're going to talk about your next guy out of Stanford, Elic Ayomanor.
You did well.
Hey, look at me stumbling through it backwards. Tell me about this guy.
So one, he's Canadian. So does that change anything for you?
Like him a lot less.
Yeah, a lot of enemies up there.
Yeah.
My God.
We only have room to like
they
many
think
Canadians.
they're better than us. Like they talk about our government too much. I don't like that.
Canadian bacon is vastly inferior to American bacon.
Way worse. Everything's falling apart. No one can afford any homes up there. Like let's pump the brakes on America sucks.
So there you go. I don't know if that was the answer you were expecting, Kyle.
That was not. What's so funny is that I have this stream version of one of the NFL channels, and every once in a while they show like NFL Canada, where they like show all the players in the NFL, like Chuba Hubbard, Chase Brown, like all these players that are Canadian, and like these are our stars. And it's like, oh, Chuba Hubbard had a good year, like Chase Brown had a good year. It's like there's only a couple dudes, but what's interesting about him, he's bigger body, he has a track background. So usually, like this is the issue with players like Tet McMillan and just guys that are just bigger, is if your trump card is just 50-50 balls, that doesn't always work in the NFL, just being a big dude. It's like the JJ Arcega-Whiteside thing. Remember him like a couple years ago, was just out of Stanford, was just huge. But if you don't develop as like this nuanced route runner, then it doesn't work. That's why Drake London works in the NFL. He can blot out the sun with his body, and yet he also can run in the slot and they move him around and that stuff works. I think he's one of those players, Ayomanor, that can do it. He's physical and he's more than just an outside wide receiver. So he's interesting in this class as like a deeper name. Like I don't think he's going to get first round draft capital, might not even get second, but somewhere on day 2, I think he could show up. I think there's a team that would be very happy to have him as an outside wide receiver that can also like shift around.
Something I've heard at the beach, Pabbo. Your physique blocks out the sun.
You're not at the beach.
That was very triggering.
We all know that. You're up in the room.
Do you have any notes here on Ayomanor?
I like him a lot. The IDPshow.com, the little pre-mock that I came up with, I told y'all he looks a lot like a little Michael Pittman.
Okay.
Love some Pity City.
Dude, knows how to work defensives, sits down in zones. And you're right, strong hands. He's Michael Pittman, I drafted in our main league at the 207. It feels like Elic could be right in that same range for us. Late, mid second to late second in rookie drafts. I think he could be a nice little guy. Again, if you don't get one of these elite wide receivers in the first round, like we're saying tonight, second round draft picks in IDP leagues especially sound pretty tasty this year.
Yeah,
as they do most years.
He went 209 in ours.
Yeah, 209.
209.
Yeah, that feels about right. Like, and he's from Stanford, right? So it's like, I don't know, people won't trust that.
No.
So you'll be able to get this guy for value.
Oh yeah,
love
Those
it.
trees are their mascot.
The trees are the mascot.
That's
Thinking about our Sega Whiteside.
Yeah,
That's still
true.
fresh in
For
everyone's
sure.
mind.
Still, that's a
Arthega.
fresh. Yes, Arthega.
Arthega.
It's like Barcelona.
Josh, don't move on yet. I want to, Kyle. So I know we don't want to talk about all these other guys yet. I don't love Tet. I don't think he can separate. Press coverage. I think he struggles a little bit. Now he is good downfield and all that crap. Give us a quick little. Rundown. Give us you got a draft tonight. Who are your top 5 wide receivers? Give it to us in order.
If you're
Hunter's a wide receiver.
Hunter is a wide receiver. He goes to what? The Browns at 2?
No, he's going to the Giants. And he's catching balls from Jameis.
No, he's got to go with neighbors.
Yeah.
I'd rather him be in New England. He's in New England.
He's in New England.
He's catching balls from Drake May.
I do like Drake May. I think as of right now, I think I would just take McMillan right now. It's just it's safer. Now I can change that opinion, but McMillan, Hunter, Burden, and then I'm still on the fence if I like Egbuka more than Golden or Trey Harris out of Ole Miss, Trey Harris is one of those players that if you love the spreadsheets, and I know you boys do, 5.15 yards per out run breaks the spreadsheet. Like he makes everybody else in the spreadsheet not look as good. And so some of those numbers are just kind of boosted. He only played in 8 games, but man, it jumps off the charts, especially against zone. So Trey Harris at Ole Miss is in that mix as like the 4th or 5th, back at the first round, early second. And I think Golden's in that mix too.
Okay. 2 follow-up questions. Are you worried at all about Tet? And why do you not like Egbuka? I love Amika. I think he's great.
Yes.
Why do you like Tet? Tell me. I need to know.
He's going to go in the top 15.
Are you worried at all about him?
So like I said, traditionally, I don't like players that are just 50-50 guys. It's like, it scares me that you're going to end up being a Galladay. Like that's the kind of player that's like, oh man, can you do anything else? I think there's more to him though than that. Okay. And the production profile is pretty strong. I mean, he's going to be an early declare. I think he's going to be solid. I'm not like in love with him, but I
Sounds like you are, Kyle.
Why do you love him so much?
Oh, Egbuka. Oh, that's because he should have gone out like 2 years ago. There's players like this that like
NIL, man.
That's exactly what it is. Like Travion Henderson for Ohio State, he would have been the first running back drafted last year ahead of Jonathan Brooks if he came out. He was hurt a little bit, but like he stayed because he got an NIL deal. And I looked this up, boys. He got a Chipotle deal and he loved it. And then he also got a deal from Hollister. So I don't know if that just moved him, but that Hollister money,
It was up. Then it was
we
back
talking
down.
Puka shell necklaces here or what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
With
Maybe
smelling
flops?
good.
Probably some good smelling cologne.
Yeah, just pumping it out with like the the weed sprayer.
Yeah.
Brand new ripped jeans.
Love it. Love some Hollister.
Is Hollister still thriving? Or?
I hope so. He got an NIL deal, so I hope that it's still around.
It's just dead.
It's not just some guy named Hollister that's giving out this NIL money.
I just don't see. I don't see a lot of Hollister being worn these days. But
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I'm not.
How often are you at our local mall? Not much. Let's wrap up with tight end though, Kyle. And we've got 3 names here: Colston Loveland, Harold Fannin Jr., Elijah Arroyo.
Yes.
And which of these 3 guys? Because I have heard that this tight end class is not bad. So who of these 3 do you want to talk about?
Yeah, and I'm not going to mention Tyler Warren. He's going to be the first tight end drafted out of Penn State. You're going to hear a lot about him. Colston Loveland is kind of the prototypical of he's younger than almost anyone in this class. He has the production at Michigan, which traditionally is a place where tight ends like don't really live. Like a lot of tight ends went to Michigan and then transferred because they just weren't getting the same looks. But I think Colston Loveland is also going to be a first round pick, maybe like more like 25, somewhere around there. But like, he's everything you want in terms of a young tight end that is going to fit in today's NFL. So I think Colston Loveland's one of those dudes that I'm not saying you could take him in the back of the first round, because tight ends are very unsexy to take in rookie drafts. They take a little bit longer usually to develop unless your name's Brock Bowers. But I think he's like top 15 pick in a rookie draft that you're going to have for a long time. So he's solid. Harold Fannin Jr. out of Bowling Green, his production profile also breaks a lot of charts. Like better than anybody, any tight end over the last decade in terms of yards per out run. So the highest out of everybody, 3.74. He's also one of those dudes that you have to figure out, like, are they going to use him as a traditional tight end, or are they going to Mike Gesicki him? And by Mike Gesicki or Kyle Pittsing, what I mean is he really a tight end? Is he really wide receiver? And at the end of the day, if you're not really either one of those, you actually don't have a position in the NFL. You end up kind of being not really a good tight end and not really a good slot wide receiver. So it kind of depends on what a team sees in him, but like the production was wild, like wild stuff for a tight end to be the number one read in an offense. It's Bowling Green, but Harold Fannin Jr. is a dog. And I don't say that very much. Like he's a dude, but is he a second round pick? Is he a third round pick? Who knows? Elijah Arroyo has gotten a lot of Senior Bowl buzz. And Senior Bowl is one of those things that happened this past weekend. And if you hear anything about running backs, mostly ignore it. Doesn't really matter. If you hear something about wide receivers tearing up people, that matters. Like, hey, this dude's winning in one-on-ones. That matters. If there are tight ends that stretch the field in the Senior Bowl and they get a lot of buzz, they tend to rise. And so Elijah Arroyo right now is like a top 50 prospect, where a month ago he was not even in the top 150. So he's an interesting name because he was with Cam Ward at Miami, had some solid production, but he's probably going to be the, fourth name that shows up. And so he's a name to definitely monitor for rookie drafts.
Yeah. Shout out to WKU's own Upton Stout, cornerback for the Hilltoppers. Got a lot of love at the Senior Bowl. So love to see that. Love when our tops get to be in the NFL. Bobo, you have some contrarian takes on some of these offensive
like they're
guys.
just allowing us to be in there.
Yes.
He didn't earn his way.
Welcome in. Yes.
I think we need to let one of those toppers in again.
They haven't been in a while. Let's let them on in. See? Come on in, Upton Stout.
I don't care for that. I don't like that character.
I like it.
That's a ringleader. See? Welcome on in.
That guy just leads the show from now on.
Hey, everyone. How you doing?
Sound off in the comments if you want this guy to lead the show.
God, I think I would have to walk into traffic if I had to do this character every day. Bobo, you've had some contrarian takes on the offensive guys. Tyler Warren, your tight end one. How are you ranking these guys?
Fannin is hard to look away from. That dude is a beast. He's a load. Kyle is right about the whole Gesicki slot narrative. Doesn't really work. Kind of reminds me of Isaiah Simmons, another guy that came into the league where we're like, what is he? We don't really know. So you don't really want him. Tyler Warren, shout out Connie. Sounds like, is that who he wants y'all to take, the old Dallas Clark number?
Very much so.
Okay. I mean, he would work on the Colts. I really like that. Tyler Warren also. Kyle is right. Colston Loveland is awesome. Racks up a ton of yak, crisp routes. He's fast. All these guys are big. In rookie drafts, it is going to be super interesting because one or two tight ends could go in the first round and one or two tight ends could potentially go in the second round. So it's kind of a, who do you like? What are you into? What team do these guys go to? Because for as bad as the quarterback play is this year in the draft, in my opinion, the tight ends kind of make up for it to where it's going to kind of keep some of these IDPs suppressed for us, maybe to the second round. Yeah. Addy?
What do y'all think about Scatterbo?
I love the tweet that said he would have been the first overall pick in like 1946. That's my favorite analysis on Cam Scatterbo. I'm a fan. I mean,
I think he's kind of sick, dude.
I think, we were all watching randomly that Arizona State game, right? Mm-hmm. That was just kind of one of those, like, is everybody watching this kind of moment? Like, it was kind of cool what he did in that game.
Yeah. Yeah, Kyle mentioned got that dog in him. I mean, he certainly does. He loves contact. He seeks it out. And yeah, I think that could play at the next level.
Coaches will love that.
for sure.
And they got like, that's kind of like narrative street, but like, you know, ripping a puke on the sideline, like puke and rally. Coaches are going to love this guy, man.
They don't look at anything else like this guy.
Like, oh, he's blowing chunks. Yeah, look at this dude.
Honestly, that's like a Dan Campbell type guy right there. You know?
Yeah. That's what we need. We need him in the mix.
Playing at fullback.
Backfield.
Let's add him there and see what happens.
Him and Gibbs both standing up like GT in the backfield. You know, that'd be awesome.
It's like, guys, just hunch a little bit. You're making me uncomfortable.
I'm here for it.
You're making me uncomfortable.
I'm here for it.
So, Kyle, you guys have been rocking and rolling over on the Dynasty podcast. You guys had a rookie class overview episode just drop. I think you all are going to be talking running backs here soon. Of course, you still help plan and prep all of the fantasy footballers episodes. So make sure you're checking that out as well. I think you guys have the tight end episode coming up, looking at the top tight ends. So lots of good stuff coming out of Fantasy Footballers HQ.
You're just going to get you a mirror, Kyle.
Are you okay? How many beers have you had at this point? But Kyle, I want to get you out of here on this. Give me sort of a darling rookie prospect as you started to kind of look at these guys. Who are you like higher on than consensus? Like, am I taking crazy pills? Like, why is the public, the market, not higher on this player? It could be a guy we've already talked about. It could be, you know, a deep cut, whatever strikes your fancy here, Kyle. But who's a guy that you really, really like?
Yeah, it's like I said, it's still early in the process, but I would say the guys I'm higher on, I mentioned Golden. I really like him. Dart, I'm just going to be probably higher than most, and I could be wrong. I mentioned Sampson earlier too. Devin Neal is a name that we didn't really talk about at running back. Like I think there's probably 4 or 5 names that we didn't even really mention, and we'll kind of find them out more, that could end up getting the draft capital. Like, oh man, that's a second round rookie pick. And Devin Neal's one of those guys. I think I'm grateful that I do have second round picks, like you said. And right now, like last year, I was like, I guess I'm just shooting a shot with this guy, when a lot of the wide receivers we've always done that with have airballed. Like I was going through the list of all the wide receivers the last couple of years. It's like, oh, that guy was taken in the 3rd round. It's like, they didn't matter anymore. Mm-hmm. And we have such rose-colored lens of how we view every player right now, when the reality is that most of them, if they're not drafted on day 1, it already goes down to about a 50% hit rate. You know, just anybody. And then you start going further. It's like, dude, this guy has a 20% chance of being a fantasy relevant name. Mm-hmm. So I think the running backs as a whole, I'm willing to just have a couple of shots. I tried to do that last year. I was in a league with I got Brooks and Benson. It's like, oh man. But this year, I think you can kind of, I know, you can reload where you can take a couple shots at running backs because you have, you know, the 105 and you have a couple of seconds. You're like, oh, I can get some shots. So I think that's what I want to say the most about these guys. But Devin Neal, Dylan Sampson, they're probably the running backs I'm higher on.
I also feel like probably last year you knew in the moment you were reaching. It was a need. You needed a running back. So it's like, well, these guys are top of the list. Like this year, I don't feel like that. I feel like these guys are actually talented. Like I'd feel much more comfortable taking these guys.
The landing spots this year, I think, are cleaner. Like last year, you get the reason of why you'd take Brooks. You're like, oh, well, you know, like they have this draft capital. And I know he's injured. Then they re-signed Chuba. Same thing with Benson. You're like, oh, well, Connor's out the door. This is his last year. Nope. Contract extension. It's like the pendulum has swung in fantasy football towards running backs. You saw that with like all the elite dudes, all the free agents. It's going to maybe swing a little too much because that's how reactionary we all are. We're really, really bad at this game we play. And so it does mean that I get a bunch more shots though in the 2nd round this year at running back, just because it's a better class.
You were wrong, Kyle. The answer was Bhayshul Tuten. I was just setting you up. The alley-oop was just airball.
Yeah, that'll be your last appearance.
Well, Kyle, thank you for coming on and educating us and our listeners and viewers as well. And guys, like I said, we're going to be talking rookies all February, March, April, May, the whole offseason is going to be rookie season. We are very excited about the draft. Travis Hunter, the most exciting IDP and offensive prospect that we've ever had in the history of the show. So, Kyle, thanks for walking down that narrative street with us about Travis Hunter and laying out the case for all of these guys. We will have you back on the show here soon, my friend. And I don't know what we're going to talk about, but I know it'll be a lot of fun.
But in the so check, right?
In the so check, yes, sir. If we get you in here, though, you may not be leaving. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. Well, thank you all again for tuning in. Stay tuned because back half of the episode, we're going to be talking about the IDP prospects you need to know. Hope you all have enjoyed this offensive breakdown with Kyle Borgognoni of the Fantasy Footballers. Like I said, stay tuned. Back half of the episode, we're going to talk IDP, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to the IDP show. We just wrapped up a rookie offensive primer with our boy Kyborg from the Fantasy Footballers. And now in the back half of this episode, we are going to be talking all about the IDPs that you need to know. Now, these are just some notable names. Bobo, you had a really good article up on the site, theidpshow.com. Basically, before you start pumping out the rookie mock drafts, just some guys to have on the radar. That's essentially what we're doing tonight. Is we're going to be looking at IDPs that need to be on the radar. I think we probably have like 15 to 20 names, Bobo. Is that right?
Sounds about right.
Sounds about right. Like I said, if you want to read more about these guys, check out Bobby's article. It is free over at theidpshow.com. And we just talked about all the offensive guys. So now it's time to talk about everyone's favorite IDPs. And we're going to start right at the top, boys. Abdul Carter, edge rusher. Eddie, I feel like Abdul Carter is going to be probably top 2, top 3 pick in the NFL draft and has a really strong chance of making it into the first round of rookie drafts as well.
Yeah, it seems like he's going to be like the next big deal at edge rusher, right? Like a pretty safe, a pretty reliable asset. He's going to have the size, and then I'd imagine he's going to test very well at the combine. So, yeah, I mean, he's I think in that mold of like Jared Verse, Latu, Dallas Turner, like he's that type of prospect. Although all those guys didn't hit year one, like I think they're still going to have like bright futures ahead of them. Abdul Carter I expect him to kind of play well out the gate. And yeah, I think that he's going to be, a top 10 edge asset for us for the next, as long as he wants to be.
Foreseeable future?
Yeah, 5 to 10 years.
You already have him top 10, don't you?
Already, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, he feels like he's gonna be just another one of these types.
Well, and especially, Bobo, we've got the trade rumors now with Myles Garrett requesting a trade from the Browns. I don't think Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter will go with the first overall pick. I think someone will trade into that Titans spot and take Cam Ward, take Shedeur Sanders. And then I think the Browns sit at 2 and get their pick of the litter between Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter. And I would love to see Myles Garrett or not, but if Myles Garrett is still there, teamed up with Abdul Carter, that's a beautiful combination.
Yeah, that'd be, potentially the scariest defensive end combination, pretty quickly in the NFL, I think. Carter is just really good. Even since I came out with that article, I've dug into Carter a little bit more. He's really impressive in the run game also. He's not just a pass rusher. Something that kind of triggered me when Daniel Jeremiah came out with his recent top 50 big board, Abdul Carter was at 1. And I thought Carter was good, but I didn't think he was like that good. I went to his stats from 2024 when he played for Penn State. 68 tackles, which is really, really good for an edge defender. 12 sacks, 24 TFLs in 2024. You know who those numbers sound a little bit like? Jared Verse last year, 66 tackles, 4.5 sacks. We all hope for maybe double-digit sacks in the next year or two for Jared Verse. But 11 TFLs last season with the Rams. So I feel like Abdul Carter, the more that I've watched him, the dude's got a motor. I know we've talked about that with Jared Verse. Finishing plays, tackling running backs, good in the run game. Just kind of an all-around good edge. Doesn't just rush the passer, and that's pretty much all he does. He's a well-rounded athlete. So Abdul Carter, we talked about it a little bit with Kyle. 110 range. Could we maybe see him sneaking into the back end of some of these, first round 1 QB leagues? I think so, and I think it's a pretty safe pick.
Yeah, I think of any year, this is the year where you're going to see 2 IDPs go in the first round with Travis Hunter getting cornerback consideration. And I think Abdul Carter gets in there as well, 110 to 112 range.
Yeah, and like Carter, to me, feels like the clear-cut, best edge prospect in the class. And like all the guys after him kind of like are just clumped together, in my opinion. Yeah. So I think it makes a lot of sense this year, especially to take him at the end of the first, early second at the latest.
Yeah, not to put too much of a damper like early on in the episode, but like if Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter are A's, the rest of these guys are kind of C's. Mm-hmm. I don't feel like we have a whole lot of B prospects after these guys. Some of them maybe with the combine and, draft situations may work back into the back, B- type category. But I'm with you. There's a tier, 2 guys in this top tier, and then there's a pretty big jump.
It's interesting. I think this is the purest distillation of the rookie evaluations right now, because we don't have the sort of hype that begins to build here with the Senior Bowl, and the combine really starts to ratchet up the hype for these guys. We get some of these smoke screens about X team likes this player and this guy is going to go top 5. I think the evals right now, just looking at the production, the tape, how we feel about these guys right now, something we need to hold on to, because as we get closer and closer to the draft, we tend to just get swept away in the river of hype. So if you're telling me you've got 2 A's and a bunch of C's, I'm going to try to remember that and not let draft capital or landing spot drag these guys into like B or A territory.
Yeah, because I feel like a lot of the hype season, a lot of this off season in Dynasty, when we get kind of bored and we try to make some of these guys into something, is when it gets a little bit dangerous. That's when you start overdrafting to some extent. Yep. These IDPs will go in the first, and then like we talked about with Kyle, the second round is going to be heavy with some running backs, tight ends, even some wide receivers, because there's going to be a lot of running backs taken in that first round.
I'll be curious. There's usually a glut of defensive players go in rookie drafts in the second round. That's where you start to see the top IDP assets go, beginning of the second, end of the second, into the third. And I feel like that's going to be a lot of offensive players. I think you're going to see a ton of running backs get bumped up the board this year.
Don't take too many dart throws this year, because you could get caught holding a bag with 8 darts, and none of them are worth anything.
Don't want that many darts.
The upside of the darts.
Yep.
It's like probably not there.
For sure.
Yeah. So let's keep rolling though, boys. Abdul Carter, the clear one, probably overall, just for all IDP prospects, depending on how you feel about Travis Hunter.
Don't move on yet, just because we'll probably talk less about some of these guys. But so Adam, you've got Abdul Carter in the ranks, IDPshow.com, right ahead of Edge Cooper and right behind Brian Branch. You do have him, however, ahead of Dallas Turner and Latu, and then obviously behind Myles Garrett, Jared Verse. Can anything change that for you?
I think Verse is probably going to stick there ahead of him.
Okay.
But no, I mean, I with the years that Turner and Latu had, I just know how the market is going to react to that. Right?
Yeah.
And they're already, I'd say a lot of people are already looking to move off of those guys. We're just very impatient in this day and age.
I did move off of Latu.
Yeah, you just did.
In our main league. Now, I did get Edgerrin Cooper.
Yeah, so kind of like a lateral type.
Yeah, it was. I wanted to pour value out of the edge bucket into the linebacker bucket, because my only guy under contract in our main league was KJ Britt.
I like that deal for you, because honestly, there's more upside to me with Edgerrin Cooper. Yeah. More positivity.
The number 1 IDP scoring-wise by Big 3 scoring in the fantasy playoffs.
You're right, Adam. You don't want to kind of get too far the other way, but it's a little concerning with Latu, There was the injury stuff in college, and you wanted to see a little bit more pop in the rookie season.
I'm much more concerned with Latu than I am Turner.
Correct, absolutely.
Just because he was ready to roll. That's what we thought. He's 24.
Latu didn't have anybody in front of him like Turner did.
No.
I do like, though, you have Lou Anarumo, new defensive coordinator, but did have Trey Hendrickson there.
Yeah,
so guy knows how to unleash.
Those two kind of seem a little similar.
Right.
Latu and Trey.
Yeah, very much like just a designated pass rusher kind of guy.
Verse needs to stay ahead of Carter, just because you want Carter to end up like Verse. Verse hasn't had double-digit sacks, and he hasn't had a 15-sack season, so he hasn't made it yet.
We know what we've got in Verse,
For sure.
But I think we know what we have in Carter.
We could easily see Carter come out and have a better year one than verse 2.
Isn't this so much easier to talk than offense? I struggle talking offense. I love Kyle coming on.
I don't even know what positions
sometimes
offense play
receiving
anymore.
and it's just like,
what is this running back?
Yeah.
Let's just talk tackling.
Is he going backwards?
Yeah, it's not as fun in my opinion. I mean,
sure.
I don't know how people talk about it all the time.
You all know. You all know because you're here
Kyle.
listening to
for coming
the
on.
IDPs. Yeah, thank you for carrying the show.
Yeah.
Next up,
we didn't want to do that.
He's not listening.
Jalen Walker, Georgia, 6'2", 245, 5-star recruit, 21 years old. Talk to me about Jalen Walker, Bobo.
DJ has him really high on the big board. That's another little thing that kind of intrigues me a little bit. A lot of times I like to look at what defenders do in big games. You got to, there's going to be a lot of talk this offseason about, well, Travis Hunter played at Colorado, then played real good teams. Ash and G&T played Boise State, and they didn't play real good teams. Well, we had a game where Walker played, I think this was against Texas in October, 8 tackles, 3 sacks, 3 TFLs, 1 fumble recovery, big-time playmaker. Now, I will say a lot of mocks that I have seen, and they're all mocks, this is early on, have Walker going to Arizona. So I'm not so sure if that would have us on board or jumping ship at that point. But
good for opportunity.
Yeah, I was going to say, from an opportunity standpoint,
for sure,
wheels up.
Wide open. Walker's draft capital, though, is going to skyrocket in 2024, I think, or in 2025. This dude is athletic. He is going to put up a stupid RAS. His combine is going to be pretty dang sexy. And people are going to start chattering more about Walker the closer we get to draft season.
Just reading your write-up and kind of, the way that the draft tends to unfold is that guys like this are the risers, the athletic freaks, because most GMs will bet on traits. They will bet on athleticism, size, speed, combinations, and a guy like Walker just feels like someone that's going to end up as like a top 15 pick.
Yeah, I agree. And right now he's kind of being suppressed because everyone's fresh off the Senior Bowl. Everyone's hyping up Mike Green. Shemar Stewart had a good Senior Bowl. So it's like I've seen those guys getting mocked above Mykel Williams and Jalen Walker, which was not the case
For
3 weeks ago.
Yep.
But now you're starting to see it. So yes, now once we get the combine and everything, you're going to see the rise of Jalen Walker and Mykel Williams, I think.
And James Pearce. Pearce fits
sure.
into that freaky, athletic type role as well. Look at the PFF numbers. I mean, 63 in 2022, better in 2023 at 72, and then 2024, 73. Pass rush grade of 83 in 2024. The pressures got better every year. The sacks got better every single year. And Jalen Walker in Sleeper is going to probably be a dual Desi guy. So in the ADP, as far as the best balls are concerned, it will be interesting to see where Walker goes, because I do think, and you all know this better because y'all are better at best ball than I am, but the dual Desi is a benefit, but only if you use it in the right context.
You draft the right guy.
Don't overdraft and draft the right guy.
Don't reach just to get the dual Desi cheat code.
Yeah.
I use it as a tiebreaker a lot of times.
But yeah, if it's a hit of a pick,
yeah,
and he's got that dual Desi,
Right.
that's ultra valuable.
But listen to this, much like Abdul Carter last year, 60 tackles to go with 6.5 sacks. So he is getting you something if he's not getting you a sack a game. And I love that. I love the high floor.
Yeah, Jalen Walker, and also he was a little bit they didn't really know what to do with him, right? He played off ball some.
Yep.
They moved him at edge. He played better at edge. I think everyone's kind of projecting to be an edge rusher. But 19% pressure rate for Jalen Walker, which is really, really good. That's among some of the best rates in the class. And the other thing with these Georgia guys, they never produce well in college.
Yep.
So they're such a hard evaluation. Think back to Quay Walker. Quay Walker wasn't that productive in college. Jalen Carter definitely wasn't productive in college.
Yeah.
Tons of examples of just these recently too from these Georgia defenses where these guys, they don't really produce much, but they end up being really good pros. I'm kind of just trusting that with Jalen Walker and Mykel Williams again. I think they're going to rise to the combine, but also I just think that they're playing elite elite competition.
Yeah.
They're on good
SEC.
defenses with a bunch of really good players around them.
Yep.
It's a little bit harder to eat.
Yep.
Georgia Bulldogs are a good store of value, I feel like, on the IDP side.
Jalen Walker feels like a 3rd-round draft pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, in rookie drafts.
Yep.
And you'll be happy with it.
Yeah,
sure.
Absolutely. Especially if you get a
And
top
honestly,
15
maybe we'll get these
landing
guys
spot.
like in the 4th. Like
Yeah.
really with with how we've been talking about this draft, it's just a lot of unknowns and but a lot of depth too. So I think that we'll see probably some of the best value IDP wise we've seen in a while.
And there's going to be so many running backs. Like I mean, it's going to be running back.
We have a 5-round,
position.
60 pick draft. I bet 20
And again,
for sure.
to 25 running
And again,
backs, man.
What's most fresh on everyone's brain is how well these running
Right.
backs did. And if
Yeah.
you had the running backs, you won. And
That's
so
right.
everyone's going to want these running backs. That's going to just push all this value down the board.
Just
Exactly.
follow the opposite of the pendulum swings, right? Like if you're like, everyone's going wide receiver crazy in drafts this year, let me go for these running backs and scoop up that value. You would have had a great season. But you mentioned Mike Green at the Senior Bowl, Addy, and he was, I think, the big winner of the Senior Bowl. You mentioned Shemar Stewart as well. Mike has a great write-up on the website right now for free, theidpshow.com, talking about the DL, so like IDL and edge prospects that you need to know.
Nice little mashup with Couch Scouts.
Yes, Couch Scouts provided a lot of the clips. Shout out those guys. Use our code IDP Show if you'd like to go sign up and do your own rookie scouting ahead of time. As far as I know, one of the few places you can find IDP film on these prospects. So go check it out. Code IDP Show over there. But thanks to those guys. Mike Green, though, Bobo, big time riser. But what did you see before all the Senior Bowl smoke started to swirl?
I mean, the guy was good before the Senior Bowl. 84 tackles, 17 sacks, 23 TFLs. Those are jaw-dropping numbers for an edge. I mean, that's just some crazy stuff. Led the nation with sacks, second most TFLs last season with 23. And it can also do a backflip at 251 pounds, which
That's
is
perhaps
super
most
impressive.
impressive.
You know, he's kind of the inverse a little bit of Jalen Walker. If we're talking about Jalen Walker and how he's playing all this elite, offensive lineman across from him in the SEC, I don't even know what division Marshall's in. Conference USA?
No, I don't think that's Conference USA anymore.
Not
I think
sure.
they moved up.
I gotcha.
I think they're like AAC
Atlanta
or something.
Okay.
I'll look it up, though. I'll vet it.
Atlantic Coast, not ACC. Is there another one over
There's
there
an
that's
AAC.
Atlantic? I wonder what that is. Either way, Mike Green, I mean, if you've been on Twitter at all, you know the name. It's going to be interesting to see this guy just catapult himself into, could he get to be a top 10 pick in the NFL draft? Maybe.
Show I watch a lot, NFL Stock Exchange.
So good. Those guys are awesome.
They're great. They just mocked him at 8 overall.
Now, that's a little crazy.
That's a little nuts.
Wow.
But I mean, you look at like production in college, like Mike Green is one of the best producers. And then the advanced stuff is good too. 17.3% pressure rate, 8.7% tackle rate. So that's really nice for an edge rusher. So seems like he could be a guy that has a nice solid floor for us, but also get those big plays. But yeah, I mean, the big question there is like he played at Marshall.
Yeah.
Sunbelt. It's the Sunbelt Conference.
Oh, brother.
Yeah. So
Shout out Western.
yeah, that was our
WKU.
old conference. We moved into
Right.
Conference USA, so Sunbelt's even a step down from that.
So I think the hype has been a little much lately.
Yeah.
I do like him, but I'm not willing to like plant a flag on him
For sure.
and be like, I'm taking this guy in the
Also,
second round.
there's some questionable kind of biographical information going on here with Mike Green.
Yeah. Can't find his birthday.
That's true. Yes.
What's going on there?
Can't find his date of birth, which is always, it's never a good thing. You know, it's never like,
You're never
this
younger.
guy, yeah, he's younger than I thought he was going to. Never that.
He's usually like, oh, he's 26.
He's 48.
Yeah.
Because if you look at like what he is, he's a redshirt sophomore. So
Yeah.
like, oh wow, this guy must be young. But he was at Virginia originally, and then he transferred, so he sat out for a full year. So he's probably like 22, 23.
Old.
The jump in production is pretty crazy, though. From the first year at Marshall to the second year, 43 tackles to 84, and then 4.5 sacks to 17.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, it is.
It is good stuff. But
I'm with
it
you.
is Marshall.
I'm
and
with
he is
you.
a little older.
I agree.
He will be a first-round pick, though, in the NFL draft.
Yeah,
for sure.
These edge rushers.
But is he going to be more like? Is he going
And
to?
8 is Carolina, so they do have a need in edge rusher.
Is he going to be like a Dallas Turner though, or is he going to be like a? What was the edge that was taken late in the first round last
Felix
year?
Anadike-Uzomah?
There you go. No, that's not him. Marshawn Neeland.
Yeah,
Neeland.
You know,
I'm just thinking of these late first-round guys that we get excited about,
Chris
like
Braswell
FAU.
was like early second.
yes.
You know,
Yeah.
a few years ago, it was
Lucas Van Ness.
it was
Yeah.
Joe Tryon Shoyinka, Owe. Like,
Yeah,
it seems like
Shoyinka.
there's a lot of busts in these kind of late
But, you know,
first-round picks.
He could be like a Van Ness. Van Ness was a guy that I don't think was projected to go that high.
I agree.
But because of the way the draft was, just kind of like a lot of question marks at every position.
We'll just try
Let's
this
just
guy.
take him higher.
Yeah.
And that could be the same thing with Mike Green, especially with all the buzz that's building lately. But yeah, he scares me a little bit. Especially it's like there's a lot of guys that are just in the mix with him, I think.
Yeah.
It's like I don't like him more than James Pearce Jr.
Yeah.
I don't like him more than these Georgia dudes.
And
like
it's also kind of like Scatabo, to where people kind of want to have a sleeper, but those sleepers get overdrafted when we talk about them for so many
There's no
months.
such thing as a sleeper anymore,
Yeah.
guys. It's like round-the-clock coverage of the NFL draft.
So Green is going to be a lot of people's guy, but that means that you're probably going to overdraft him at like 205 or something.
no, thank you.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
I agree.
Yeah. Good year to have second-round picks and use those second-round picks on offense.
Watch, Mike Green just smashes in the NFL.
And really,
He's a
I'm
top 5 pick.
I'm probably not interested in finding that next edge guy after Carter.
Yeah, I'll just take Carter.
I'll take whoever falls like into the 4th or 5th round.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm really focused on the
Miles
safeties. Like I'm focused on like Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, and then like there's a couple safeties that we'll get to that I like. But otherwise, like I'll just take the value of the edge.
I have gotten that vibe from this class to where it's like, all right, you want the 106, cool. What vets do you have? You know, let me just get a vet plus right now and just let somebody else figure this out. And I'm not even talking just IDP. I'm talking offensively as well, because there's going to be a lot of busts out of this class.
Bobo has 5 first-round picks, if you're
Yeah,
wondering.
little
why
concerned.
this is going through his head right now.
concerned.
James Pearce Jr., I'm with you. Our friend Jacob is a big UT fan. He's been raving about James Pearce Jr.
Jacob also raves about every.
Yeah, I
Tennessee
mean,
ball.
he's a diehard Tennessee fan. All the Vols are
We
great.
should have gotten Kyborg's take because he's a Tennessee guy.
Yeah, I did not know that.
Forgot
Let's
about
call
that.
His
him. Let's call
fandom
him.
is
Yeah, get him
extremely
on the- get him on the
interesting.
horn.
But yeah, so James Pearce, I'm with you. Like Mike Green, I think it's go get your money, Mike Green. Go ball out at the Senior Bowl. Have a great combine and skyrocket up the draft board and make yourself some money. I'm just going to go with these SEC guys. I think I'd rather, if I'm going to kind of place my chip down somewhere on the table, I'm just going to do it with the SEC guys.
Yeah.
You want to know what's going to be fun? Take a day off, work, whenever it is. Watch the combine with these guys. This combine with some of these edge
love
guys
the
is going to be
combine.
fun. Jalen Walker's RAS is going to be sexy. Mike, what did I just say? James Pearce's RAS is
Yes,
it's going to be
very
even
nice.
better. Be a nice RAS.
Yeah, I feel like a 440's coming out of James Pearce.
Agreed.
That's going to be sick.
Because I mean, when you look at him play, like he looks like a damn like linebacker. Like he's not the biggest dude. He's kind of like skinny looking.
Yep.
But man, he's effective. Like great bend, like super quick. So
Yep.
I think like that dude like can put on some weight too. Like he could be a force.
6'5", 243, 4-star recruit, 21.3 years old.
And another thing about Mike Green, I was looking. They did release the measurables for the guys that attended the Senior Bowl, and his weren't like that great. Like his wingspan was like 77 inches, which is usually you want someone like in like the low 80s. But like he had like the size just wasn't ideal. Like little hands, shorter arms.
That's not great for edge rushers.
Yeah, and this stuff that I wasn't, crazy about. And then like the no DOB, just like
Yeah.
How old are you, Mike? What the hell's going on here,
Massive
bud?
red flag.
Massive
Yeah.
red flag. James Pearce, all these guys we've talked about thus far, I feel like are first round picks in the NFL draft.
Yeah, for
Yes.
sure. But
And
not in
so-
rookie drafts. I mean, like,
No.
Pierce to me feels like a 4th rounder.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
That's the hope.
Let's
right?
keep
What
it there.
you like though is as these guys move further and further back in the NFL draft, they typically land with better teams.
Yeah.
And so you even though you don't have the draft capital of say like an Abdul Carter,
James Pearce will go to the Eagles.
right? Exactly.
Same
Somewhere
thing like Nolan Smith. That's what kind of like James Pearce kind of reminds me, like a Nolan Smith type pick.
Super athletic.
Yep, fast.
Little weirder size.
and
throw up
Nolan
the
Smith
combine.
is starting to heat up. I mean, you see,
starting to hit up year
I
2.
want the smart teams that invest in these guys, like the Eagles.
Yeah.
Watch the Steelers take him, and it's just like, dear God, what are you doing to us, Mike Tomlin? Next up, though, linebacker Jihaad Campbell. Bobo, as we make the shift over to linebacker, it doesn't feel like there is a clear cut. This dude is the linebacker, like Abdul Carter, clearly the edge one. Doesn't feel like there's a clear cut LB one that you're like really fired up about.
Yeah, I think that Campbell is going to be good in IDP. I think he's going to fill up the stat sheet. My worry is just like the long term with him. I don't think the PFF numbers are going to be that good. Really sexy bend. Actually has some good pass rush metrics to his game. Sprinkles in a little bit of sacks from time to time, much like Patrick Queen, Devin White did early on in their rookie campaigns. But what does the stock for Pat Queen and Devin White look like right now? Not great. So it's a little bit early for Campbell, and I don't really want to go one way or the other at this point. But much like Devin White hopping around from team to team 4 or 5 years into his campaign is just not great. I think what I've kind of come around to with Campbell is that if Campbell can put up some stats in his rookie season and gets me a little bit of profit, I might take the profit and move off of him, because I like Campbell, but I think he's very replaceable.
I think I'm going to be totally out on linebackers in this year's rookie draft for 2 reasons. Number one, this doesn't seem like a particularly exciting group, an outstanding group by any stretch, but also because there's a lot of free agent linebackers available. And so I feel like you're going to see draft capital for these guys suppressed because teams would just rather fill their linebacker
That's
needs
a good
with
point,
free
Josh.
agents.
You don't have to hit on rookie picks. You're no less of a human being if you just don't like picking and you want to go and get Josie Jewell, or you want to go and get Blake Cashman. It's okay.
Well, and 2, you also have not only a lot of free agent linebackers, but a lot of these linebackers that we've been waiting for the profit to come on, like a Jack Campbell, right, that are going to start to blossom and really take off and kind of backfill some of these Jags that are going to be replaced, some of these aging veterans. But I just don't think teams are going to be like, let me take a linebacker at the end of the 2nd round or in the 3rd round when they can just go sign Bobby Wagner, Levante David, Big Bob Spillane, EJ Speed, Zach Bond if they want to pay $16 million a year.
Is the risk in the 3rd and the 4th round of these rookie drafts really worth it for a guy like Campbell? Is it worth it to take a dart on Campbell to see if he works out, or would you be better off just saying, yeah, sure, I'll trade the 309 for Josie Jewell?
See, the linebackers typically start to go in the 2nd round, I feel like, in a lot of rookie drafts.
Yeah.
And I just
don't see it in this class.
I don't see it. Now, if it's like 4th round, yeah, sure. Why the hell not? Like, what else you got going on in the 4th round that you're excited about? But
draft capital will be the signal for these linebackers.
I don't think they're going to get it.
Yeah,
I think this is going to be the most suppressed you've ever seen linebacker
Probably.
draft.
But it just
capital.
takes one. If we can get one in the 2nd round, that'll be someone that's probably drafted in the 3rd round of your rookie draft.
Yeah,
It
'cause
happens. It will happen.
What did Peyton Wilson go last year?
Late 3rd.
Okay, so he was later. We thought, is it going
Junior
to...
Colston, though, was a 3rd
Yep.
round pick, and he went in the 2nd.
Yep.
So, I mean, that path is there.
Man, that's going to be...
People love linebackers. Like, there will be one of these guys. Like, Jihaad Campbell,
Maybe.
I mean, he was a 5-star recruit out of high school.
His senior year was pretty nice.
Senior year was pretty nice. He did play at Alabama. I mean,
that carries a lot of weight.
pretty good little school.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I if we see him get, late 2nd round, early 3rd round draft capital, like, yeah, we could probably start talking ourselves into
I could
to a guy
see
like that.
I could see 3rd round for maybe a guy like Campbell.
If you
I
were-
just don't think you're going to have 2nd round linebackers this year.
Would you rather have the 310 with Campbell or Colston?
Man, what does that look like with Dayon Henley there now?
I think it's great, because Kazier's probably gone.
I feel like
or is it
both those guys will be in probably similar situations.
Not Kazier.
Who was that? It's not Kenneth Murray. Who's the other Chargers linebacker there?
It's Dayon Henley.
It's Dayon Henley,
the older guy. Yes, Denzel Perryman. I knew it was an old
Troy
guy.
Dye's a UFA.
Yeah, if it's Harbaugh there, is that I would probably, Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw?
I would probably take Campbell in that scenario just because I feel like it's going to be a little murky there in LA just because you have Henley that's going to surely be that.
He was third team All-Pro, y'all.
He was good.
He was good. Like he is good. Legit good. I don't think they're going to take this guy off the
he's
field.
Young and learning. And
I guess for the Harbaugh, it would be not Greenlaw and Warner, but it would be Patrick Willis and Navarro Bowman, right? Weren't those Harbaugh's linebackers when he was with the 49ers?
Nice.
But doesn't this feel like a good year, though? Like, I get that thirds and fourths are fun, but doesn't this feel like the year where to go and trade a third for maybe you're not going to get at Dallas Turner for a third, but a guy like that who's like a second or third year guy, but hasn't had much opportunity yet. He's been injured.
Someone that we just had a great episode of the After Show with Jason King and Scott Soltis doing Dynasty Buy, Sell, Hold. And Scott was referencing your Dynasty rankings and the trade value in there. And he said, if I can go get like a TJ Edwards or somebody with a third-round pick, sign me up for that.
Sure.
Right? Yeah. And so I think that is the kind of guy, the unsexy veteran that, just happens to finish top 12 every year, year after year.
Or like trade a fourth for Jalix Hunt, like we talked about. Guy that's got some upside. I mean, I don't know.
Jalix Hunt may be on your waivers right now.
Oh, for sure. But I'm just saying, I don't know. There's just a lot of guys right now that I think kind of had a little pop and a little opportunity.
It's a good year just to cash out on some of these picks and go get some veterans.
Yeah.
Let's move on, though. Talk about more rookie prospects there as we just crap all over all of them. Danny Stutsman, Oklahoma, 6'4", 236 pounds. That's a big old Oklahoma boy right there, Bobo.
Yeah. He is boring, though. He's just old boring linebacker. But I think he's the kind that you might want in IDP. Not real flashy, not super fast, but just solid and reliable. I think that based off of where I think you'll be able to draft Stutsman, I potentially could be a buyer. I think 4th round for Stutsman is a real possibility. And if you look back at his production, he was pretty productive at Oklahoma. 360 tackles over 4 seasons. He had 8 sacks, which is fine. 3 interceptions. Not overly athletic, not overly fast, not overly great in coverage or anything, but is a pretty sure tackler. I don't know.
Yeah, 14.1% career tackle rate. So, I mean, that's among
pretty solid.
Some of the best for the linebackers. So, yeah, I mean, that's what I'm looking at, really. Yeah. Like, can this guy tackle?
Yeah.
Is this guy going to be, when he's out there for me, is he going to give me a safe floor? Because everything else is just gravy. But, I mean, yeah, I think he could be that. Am I willing to overpay for him?
No way.
Lord, no.
Yeah.
But he's someone that, I mean, this could be like there for you in the 5th. Could be there on waivers.
Could be, somebody you're scooping up in like an auction after your rookie draft.
I feel like there's going to be a lot of that at linebackers and even edge, just because the edge class is solid, but it's also deep. So, I mean, a lot of these guys will go undrafted, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Be good for us. Bobo, it would not be a linebacker rookie preview unless you were talking about somebody from Clemson.
Yeah.
Barrett Carter, 6'1", 236 pounds is this year's flavor. Why should we be holding out hope that this is not the next Isaiah Simmons or
Trotter?
You should be,
or Trenton.
You should be concerned. You should be concerned. I do like Carter's play, but the stats were lacking, and I don't really care for that. Never had a 100 tackle season at Clemson and played pretty much every year. Is decent at getting to the quarterback, has a little bit of pass rush upside there. The PFF numbers kind of are indicative to that. But something that's concerning, the overall defensive grade from 2022 on declined. 81, 70, 68. I don't know. Barrett Carter, is he a guy? Yes. Will he be someone on my team?
Is he a guy?
Probably not. I don't know. I don't love him.
Does he exist? Yeah. It's like the opposite. Like, SEC players are a good store of value. Clemson linebackers,
Yeah.
not a good store of value.
Yeah, 9.2% career tackle rate. Just not really interested in that, you know.
Yeah,
Bust.
for sure.
I think we can just go ahead and declare this guy a bust. Like
I think
right
so.
off the
I
rip,
think so.
huh? I
Yep.
think let's just go ahead and
Yep.
But then, I mean, you're right
him-
with the PFF stuff, nothing special. It's like, there's just, I mean, I feel like if you're a good linebacker, like it'll stand out. Like it's like, oh yeah, this is obvious. This guy's going to be a stud. Like if you look back at like Kuechly, and Kendricks, Eric Kendricks, and just all these guys that have been good for us in IDP, like it's very obvious. We haven't had a very obvious rookie
In a while.
We really haven't.
it's true.
Why,
It's a shame.
Why
I
is
know.
that?
I think it's a hard position to play.
They moving
think-
him away from that position.
Yeah, you look at they're getting devalued. It's like running back in the NFL, right? It's sort of a similar type of position in terms of what teams value. Don't let your boys grow up to be running backs or linebackers.
Thinking the same thing.
It's not. They're not going to get paid. I mean, the contract estimate for Zach Bond is coming in below what Patrick Queen made last year.
Wow.
Think about that for a second, right?
And Pat
The
Queen's probably
season
getting
that
cut.
Zach Bond just put up, he's not going to get the type of guap that Patrick Queen just got.
Well, I mean, and that's because Patrick Queen's about to get cut.
Yeah.
You know, I
Right.
mean, it's a risky business paying and trusting in these linebackers.
And that's what you just said a week or two ago, to where you're like, do you want to be the team that pays Bond? Like,
no,
this year was good,
No.
but
he's 28.
yeah, that's a
You know?
scary contract to give, man.
Yeah.
That play can turn around pretty quickly.
Let's go to DB though, boys. And this is where I think you're most excited, Addy. Malaki Starks, safety, Georgia, 6'1", 205. You said, give me Travis Hunter, give me Abdul Carter, and give me some safeties that we're going to talk about. I feel like Malaki Starks was the guy you were referencing.
Yeah. I've already got him way up there in the ranks. He's already looks like safety 4.
Okay.
So we have him behind Brian Branch, Caham, Antoine Winfield, and then there's Malaki Starks.
So you've got some of the mock draft data as well. You kind of, I think there's several mock drafts that are out right now. Do any of them have any of them gone deep enough to get Malaki Starks
Oh yeah.
included? Is he a top?
He's getting drafted very early. So
Okay,
yeah, I've been kind of
interesting.
keeping track with some of like my favorite sources, like Daniel Kelly at the Ringer. He's put out a mock. Daniel Jeremiah, we've referenced him a lot. NFL Stock Exchange, that show on YouTube. But yeah, he's in Daniel Kelly's mock. He went 12th
Oh wow.
overall, and Daniel Jeremiah's he went 24th. NFL Stock Exchange, he went 17th. Dane Brugler 2.0 had him at 9.
That's the one I tend to trust the most is Brugler.
So yeah, I mean this is and that's safety 1 off the board in every
overall.
single one of these mocks. Yeah, so I mean he's one of the better prospects we've had at safety. In
Did
a
Kyle
while.
Hamilton even go that
He
high?
went 14th, I think.
I was gonna say I think it was double digits that he went.
And we'll see if he actually goes this high. It's a lot easier to mock a safety, that high than actually draft him.
Yeah, a lot of these edge rushers will start flying up the
Yeah.
board once the combine rolls around. But
Right.
what's got you hot in the pants for Malaki Starks?
Just everything you want to see, like produced well at a place like Georgia, and also did it like immediately once he got there. And that's hard to do. We talk about dominator rating and stuff like that's the same thing there. When we see a guy produce immediately at a school like that should make your ears perk up. And yeah, I like the way he plays. Just feels like a good asset for us at safety, which is can sometimes be a hard thing to find. So someone that I might be willing to spend like a second round, like a late second round rookie pick on.
Yeah, Bobo, we always talk about, third and especially fourth round, I feel like has been rich with DB hits, whether it's, safety or cornerback. You think about where guys like Brian Branch ended up and Derwin James and Antoine Winfield. And a lot of these guys are third, fourth round picks, but in a draft like this where the other IDPs are kind of like, and if you get a safety that has top 10 draft capital in the NFL, I agree with Addy. I think, why not just take your swing on a guy that Adam already has as a top 5 dynasty safety. Safety's kind of a mess right now. So if I can find a guy that potentially has that top 5 upside, I don't mind paying up for something like that.
Yeah, first round draft capital in the NFL does a lot for you. The playing time is going to be there. The production is probably there. The talent is going to be pretty good. I never think you can go wrong when you get into a draft and you don't really know what to do. Are you really going to draft this 4th round running back or wide receiver or whatever? Or
give me a top 10 safety.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels way more solid.
Give me those spots again from the mock drafts for Malaki Starks.
So he went 9th in Brugler's.
Okay, so that's New Orleans. That would be nice.
In PFF's mock from February, he went 13th.
That is Miami.
Daniel Kelly, he went 12th.
That is Dallas.
Daniel Jeremiah, he went 24th.
24th is Minnesota.
Nice.
Hello.
We need a safety. NFL Stock Exchange, 17th.
17th is Cincinnati. Don't like that one as much, but anywhere he lands, though, it's going to be just like, this is your DB backfield. Go for it.
And referencing that freshman year that he had, 15 games, 68 tackles, 2 INTs, 7 PDs. Again, as a freshman at Georgia, 15.5% career tackle rate, which is super strong for safety.
I know Kyle mentioned early breakout. You know, that's what you love to see from college players on both sides of the ball. If you break out at a younger age, it means you are a prolific athlete and talent at your position, and you're much more likely to find success in the NFL. I don't think you could do much better than a freshman year breakout at that university.
That's good stuff on a great defense.
Right.
Been one of the best defenses in the nation for seemed like the last half decade. Also, his usage, pretty good usage. 50.5% of his snaps came in the sweet spot, so I'll take that usage all day. But yeah, I think he's just a great prospect and someone that should be pretty productive for us.
Bobo, you as excited about Starks?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think, I'm kind of getting tired of everybody comping these good slot guys to Brian Branch, because I think Brian Branch is good singularly. I don't think that everybody can be like Brian Branch. That being said, I do think Malaki Starks is pretty dang talented. I would like to see a little bit more backfield prowess from him. I would like to see a couple sacks would have been a little bit better for that profile. But the INTs, the tackles are really high. The dude's a baller.
All right.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where it's like we talked about how weird the production is at Georgia. Yeah. It's like, I would like to see him out of Georgia.
For sure.
I want to see what he looks like.
You put him at Marshall with Mike Green. He probably has triple the production that he has at Georgia.
Yeah, for sure.
Next up on the list, Baba, I'm going to let you pronounce this name.
I've never heard of that before, like people going backwards. Like you're playing too good a conference. Go to a bad conference.
Go to a worse conference.
Yeah,
get you a Hollister and a Chipotle.
Yeah. Pull a Mike Green, dude. You'll be getting mocked in the 8th
Pull
overall here in a few months.
Who's this next guy on the list, Babo?
Yeah, Nic Emmanwori, safety out of South Carolina.
Nailed it.
A little different size from the perspective of Malaki Starks, 6'3", 227. A little big bruiser, in my opinion.
Little big bruiser.
He's a freak. He can cover, deflect passes, intercept deep balls, tackle with authority. Even though I really do like Starks as my DB1 off the board, I feel like Adam would probably agree. Emmanwori looks special, and I think that if he goes to the right situation, you might have your little box bruiser on your hands. 224 tackles over 3 seasons at South Carolina is pretty freaking impressive. Again, just like we're talking, in my opinion, SEC is really good. I mean, you can argue whatever division. I don't really care if you argue. You can talk about it amongst yourselves. But I think the ACC is also pretty special. There's a lot of really good talent in the ACC, and the fact that Emmanwori did that at South Carolina is it's something. I like the size too. I don't know. I like my smaller safeties, but I like my 6'3", 224s also.
That's a big old boy. That's like a linebacker size boy right there.
Yeah.
And Addy, you've got the alignment in here. 69.5% sweet spot alignment.
Yeah, some of the best alignment out of the safety class. So, yeah, and a great tackler. Actually, I had Malaki Starks' tackle numbers wrong. It's 8.1% tackle rate, so a lot different than the 15.5. But again, that reinforces the point that I wish he was out of Georgia.
Yes,
it's hard to evaluate.
WKU.
Hard to evaluate, sure. But yes, Nic Emmanwori,
Look at you.
a legit 13.1% tackle rate. And that probably plays into that usage too, that 70% sweet spot usage.
He's a big old boy, y'all. That's the kind of size that you want to have down in the box.
Yep.
Down in the sweet spot.
Yep. And then the grades were good, 79.6.
God, who is that comparable to? Like, what is Curse's size? Probably, I mean, I feel like
How many safeties are 6'3",
That's my-
227?
that's my thinking.
That's big.
We'll see how big he is post combine.
Yeah, that's these dudes always
5'11".
Bobo, correct me if I'm
195.
wrong. You mentioned the ACC. South Carolina's an SEC school.
What did I say?
You were thinking
Oh,
ACC.
yeah, that's right.
This
That's
is
right.
a SEC
Sorry.
program.
Apologize.
You may be thinking of
I love ball.
North Carolina.
I love college ball.
I don't know geography.
Saturday, I'm watching ball.
Talking ball.
Watching Adam hit a white ball.
There you go. That's
Lord willing.
Thank you, Kenny.
Creek don't rise. I think there was a guy in the doc here you wanted to mention.
There was?
Before we move on.
Xavier Watts?
Yeah, Xavier Watts.
Yeah, another little guy just to put a pin
Just a
in,
little guy.
pay attention to. I talked about him in the article and everything. Fits the mold of a reliable IDP safety. 126 tackles, 13 interceptions in the last two seasons. High floor, high ceiling. I don't know. I don't know where this guy's draft capital will be. I don't know if he's going to be a first round, second round NFL draft pick. He's kind of a rover, just can move this guy anywhere. So I don't know. Nothing really I'm not
Just
pegging
file it
him
away.
anywhere.
Just file it away.
Playmaker
Xavier
type.
Watts. Yeah, just put a pin in it, and we'll revisit it after the draft.
I mean, 13 interceptions over his last two seasons. That's pretty impressive.
It is.
14 PDs. I mean, so yeah, this could be like a Jesse Bates type of guy that has a knack for making plays on the ball. And the grades are really good last season at Notre Dame. 89.7 overall PFF grade, 89.5 coverage grade. So
Nasty.
pretty good stuff. Yeah, I think he's going to be in most people's top 5 for this safety class.
I think so too. Last guy to talk about.
Yes.
JD. How did we say?
Jahdae Barron.
Jahdae Barron.
That's what we're going with.
Cornerback out of Texas. So probably not going to be a safety anywhere, but Barron could be fun, man. There's some early comps to Brian Branch. I know I just was crapping on that little comp, so we're going to circle back, and we're kind of on to it now.
I like it when it's a cornerback. When it's a safety.
Can play outside,
GTFO.
can play in the slot, sometimes can even drop down and be a little nickel linebacker at times. I'm sorry, dime linebacker at times. So, Addy, the alignment is also pretty nice as well. Jahdae Barron, just put a pin in it.
55.5 sweet spot.
Sorry.
As the table collapses into the floor.
My
Bobo.
apologies. It's now 8:26.
Yes.
11:26.
8:26. We
Eight
don't
plus
even know
3
what
hours.
time zone we're in. We're in the
I'm
West
tired.
Coast. Bobo,
Need a little
or
coffee machine
Addy, I
here.
think you've got some other notable IDPs that we want to wrap up the episode with.
Yeah, just some other guys we had to mention. Mykel Williams, we got to talk about him. He's someone that's going to be drafted probably in the first 20 picks.
Yep.
And I feel like he's going to blow up the combine as well. 5-star recruit out of Georgia. Ideal size. Not productive, though.
I don't love him.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, he's also like 20.6. He's also one of the youngest
True.
edge rushers in the group. So yeah, he's a tough evaluation, but I think there's going to be enough of people that don't like him or unsure about him that you can get him for a value. So I mean, as long as you're not overdrafting these guys, like, sure, why not?
Yeah.
But I mean, 78.3 overall PFF grade last season at Georgia, 78.7 the year before that, 71.5 in 2022. So solid. Solid. The production wasn't there, but that's the story for these Georgia boys. And then we have. Hold on one second, boys. Looks like it just hopped up top for me for some
Come
reason.
on now, Doc.
Shamar
Yeah,
Stewart.
Shamar Stewart, another edge rusher.
there for Texas
Also
A&M Aggies.
who blew up the Senior Bowl.
He had a great Senior Bowl. But same story with him, man. Like 4.5 sacks for his college career.
Yeah.
And then you look at the size, like he's like 6'5", like 290 is what he's listed as.
Good Lord.
Okay, so
That's a chunk.
Let's think about the last couple of years. Have there been any guys that have not produced in college that have done well in the NFL?
It
Hard to
seems like
find.
the clearest indicator of future success is past success, especially when it comes to players entering the NFL.
Chop Robinson,
He's looking okay.
he's looking solid. Daniil Hunter was the most obvious example.
For sure.
But that's been There's not a lot of examples of it. So yeah, I mean, that's why it's important to me. You know, the production.
And if it's important to you, it's important to me.
Yeah,
It's semi-important to me if it's important to you. I'll think on it.
but he's someone, you know, I don't know. We'll see what I want to see how the weight comes out for him, just because like that is just a weird body type.
That's humongous.
That's huge. It's like a tweener. It's like you're either a defensive tackle or an edge, but it's like I don't.
What was Tyree Wilson's weight? Because he was.
I don't think he was that.
I was gonna say I don't think he was that. That's pushing 300 pounds.
That's more like a Keon White
For sure.
type, or,
Yeah.
you know, something like that.
Was Tyree Wilson the guy that stood up behind Strager?
yes.
It was just
On Good
engulfing
Morning
him.
Football, yeah. And Schrager's not a small dude.
No, he's big.
Yeah, but Tyree Wilson's like a pterodactyl.
Yeah.
Next up, Nic Scantron.
Yeah, like Nick Scantron, Nick Scranton,
Nick
Scourton.
Scourton.
Scranton.
Shout out Dunner Miff.
Office.
Shout out.
Yeah, you know, just another one of these interesting guys. He had 10 sacks as a sophomore. So you like to see that. It was at Purdue. Then he transferred to Texas A&M, where he put up 37 tackles and 5 sacks and 14 TFLs across 12 games. So, you know, just he's getting mocked into the first in most of these mocks that I'm looking at. Pressure rate's fine. PFF grades are fine. 80.0 overall PFF grade last season, 82.8 the year before that. So just another one of these, you know, interesting pieces. That's why I talked about, like, you know, I'm in on Abdul Carter, but then after that, it's like,
Yeah.
because you see what it is. It's a lot of these guys that are just like, I have no clue.
I'll be very curious. I think a couple years back we saw the most edges that we've seen in an NFL draft go first round since we've been doing this show.
Yeah.
I think it was 7, maybe.
Yeah.
7 or 8, maybe even more than that. I'll be very curious to see how
Could
many.
be a similar type thing.
It kind of feels like that the wave is building for an excess of edge rushers in round 1. Tyree Wilson, 6'6", 275 pounds.
Wow.
So very big. And notice what happened to him. Got kicked inside. So I don't like the tweener.
Yeah,
I don't like the tweener. You got to have the weight at a place where you can play on the outside and rush the
The
quarterback.
tweener at most positions just doesn't work. I don't know. It's just historically speaking, if a team does not know where to put you,
It's true.
it's worrisome. Even offensively.
Isaiah Simmons, Drew Sanders.
You're right. Keon White's probably a better comp. 6'5", 285
Yeah.
for Keon White.
So I mean, it can work, but it's like, what's the upside?
Yeah,
Is
what-
Keon White ever
yeah.
going to get like more than?
Are we excited at
9
all
sacks?
about Tyree Wilson or Keon White?
Not
Only
really.
in the deepest of leagues, like start 4 defensive linemen, maybe. So a few more. Got an IDL here on the list.
Yeah, had to get some love. Mason Graham. This is a guy that's getting mocked inside the top 10 in basically every mock I've seen. 91.1 overall PFF grade last season. About a 10% pressure rate, which is solid for an interior defensive lineman. 90.0 overall PFF grade in 2023. So you love to see that. And then also 80.3 as a freshman there. So elite PFF numbers. I like to see that. I don't know what type of producer he'll be, but I mean, he's a guy that's definitely going to get opportunity, definitely going to get good draft capital. So should be on your radars. If you can get him like, you know, late 4th, late 5th, could be a solid pick. Carson Schwesinger at a UCLA. A fun little story here. I think this was a walk-on. It took him a couple years before he got his shot, but once he did, he balled out. I think he put up almost 140 tackles last season.
Sheesh.
80.6 overall PFF grade, 74.1 coverage grade, and again, this is a walk-on. So yeah, I believe Daniel Jeremiah was high on him. He was a fan, so interested. If he's interested,
I like Carson Schwesinger if he's getting the DJ love.
but especially with just this class, right? We're just trying to find some player that's, you know, somewhat interesting, and he's a candidate. Another candidate, Demetrius Knight out of South Carolina, 83.0 overall PFF grade last season, 77.8 the year before that. He's getting mocked like within the first 3 rounds too. So
Okay.
we're just grasping at straws for these linebackers.
We're just putting some names on your radar, folks, because we're at the stage of the offseason where we don't we're going to know as little as we know throughout this entire process. We will have more information as we go.
As you guys know, we need as much data as we can get. And so that's what we're doing right now. We're sifting through all of it. Right now we're sifting through college production, PFF grades, everything that we have out there for us. And then we're looking at mocks to see like what these experts think. And as we continue to do more and more and more of this stuff and dig deeper, we're gonna have better takes and hopefully give you guys an edge to win your leagues.
Yeah, we'll be doing like I mentioned several times throughout this episode. It's going to be rookie season for us the rest of the way, boys. We'll have some free agency stuff sprinkled in as well, but this is the time of the off-season calendar where we turn our attention to rookies and really go full bore after this incoming group. Of course, this was sort of the rookie primer episode. We're just setting the table, letting you guys know some players to be aware of. Our next episode, boys, pre-combine rookie mock draft. Let's go. Let's have some fun. Little, just again, I think
takes will be much better at that point.
Right. And I think pre-combine, that's before we start getting the real big data dump. I feel like the combine is really the crest of the roller coaster, and it really starts to take off after that in terms of formulating more concise opinions. But there's something to be said for just like right now, a clear-eyed view of who these players are coming out of college, not worrying about potential landing spot, draft capital, measurables, all this kind of stuff. So it's all part of the puzzle, but I think it's going to be interesting to do a pre-combine rookie mock, and then as we get a little bit closer, maybe do another mock just to see how things have changed and why. Why did they change if they changed?
And you're adults.
Be kind of fun.
You do what you want.
Hey,
I mean, we're just
well said, Bob.
We're just here to help. If you have a guy that you stand for, or if you're a Clemson fan and Barrett Carter makes you happy, draft Barrett Carter. I mean, this is a game.
Go nuts.
We're here to play, have a good time. We're here to help you win, and I think a lot of the things that we have done in the last couple of years have helped a lot of people win. But by all means, you're adults. Make your own decisions.
Yeah,
there may be kids listening to this too, though.
Sure,
true.
Listen to us, kids.
Hope so. You guys are the future.
We're smart.
Yeah,
but also like
don't you dare draft on your own.
It's also about process too. It's not just about players, right? We got to have like an idea of what we want to do, where the value is going to be had potentially in these drafts. That's what we're trying to figure out. Like, no one's got a crystal ball that can tell you how these guys, how their careers are going to turn out. Yeah. But we can kind of put ourselves in the best position via process.
If we're throwing darts, we can help you get closer and closer to the bullseye. On average.
The only thing we know right now is Travis Hunter's in that 102 to potentially like 105 range. It sounds like Abdul Carter is in that 109 to like 203 range. Adam likes Malaki Starks, maybe late second, early third. But then that's really about the only things that we feel confident in.
We have
right
some
now.
guideposts, right? We have some things to help us walk along the path.
When I think about Malaki Starks, I'm thinking back to like, where did Jamal Adams get drafted?
Yeah.
Where did Derwin James get drafted? And Derwin was like early third?
Yep. I got him right with Minka. It was like 306, 307.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's really nice value.
But Jamal Adams was like a mid-second, if I remember correctly.
Jeremy Chin was kind of that same draft. I think he was a fourth year. I was thinking too about like Kyle B, Mikey Sainristil, was probably maybe undrafted.
Sixth, he was.
You
took him in the 7th round in Unreal. I was looking back to their day.
But that kind of stuff, like guys like that will pop up throughout the process. As guys accumulate a little bit of draft capital, as we have a little bit more crisp takes on them, we will start to find some Sainristils if we can.
Those takes will be crisp, folks.
For sure.
You don't want to tune out. Like I mentioned, we have so many good episodes coming up for you all. I mean, we will have free agency talk. We will have mock drafts. We will have recaps of free agency once that kicks off. Combine, risers and fallers, free agency fallout, draft previews, rookie mocks, post NFL draft. So
Busiest
much good
time
stuff.
of the year,
right.
for sure.
Such a fun time. We have on the after show next week with Jace, a rookie redraft, one of my favorite concepts for an episode every year. Jace and the guys will be redrafting the 2024 rookies. So I think it's always nice before we really fully dive into rookie season and analyzing the class that's coming in, we take a look back at the class that was last year and see what we can learn about how those rookies performed and how we'd redraft them today, knowing what we know about their first year in the NFL. So Jace will be on with Kyle B, Joey the Tooth, and John Glosser, recapping and redrafting the 2024 rookies. So you want to check that out as well. IDP drafts is going to be coming at y'all at the end of this month. So just so much fun stuff on the horizon. And we're going to be bringing it to you all here on this show as well. We'll have you covered every other week, and then the after show in the weeks that we're not potting. But it's a fun time of year, boys. I'm really excited. The weather's starting to kind of turn over a little bit here in BG. It's warming up.
Getting some windows.
Yeah.
That's what Kentucky's life is all about.
Just
these
get you.
windows.
Yeah, this was a nice
72 on
As I
Monday.
say, we were
perfect.
outside all day on Monday.
Very
so
nice.
Just
and then it's going to be 40 tomorrow. I
yeah,
think.
just how it goes. You know,
Sinus infection.
yeah. Everyone's sinuses are so jacked up. It's really, you take it the good with the bad.
But hey, Kentucky is a great place. America is a great country.
As
The
we
best
know.
country, some people say.
Some people have said that.
Life's good. Everyone log out a little bit. Don't be believing or reading everything that you see on the internet.
You could have just stopped with log out.
Log out.
Just log
Truly
out.
log out.
Log out, never log back.
Life
in.
is not that bad. Log out.
Log out. We'll leave you all with that. Log out, log in, theidpshow.com, youtube.com/@theidpshow, and make sure you subscribe to all our podcasts wherever you listen to your pods. And we will be back in a couple weeks with a pre-combine rookie mock draft. Until then, enjoy the Super Bowl, and we'll see you all in a couple weeks.
It's the IDP show. Now you